Sounds like I'm about to advertise some medicine to you guys, to be honest. If you're experiencing side effects of loneliness, hunger, cramps in your butt, sweats, eye pain, and a debilitating urge to rage on the internet, you may be a gamer. See your doctor and ask if you need to maybe go touch some grass. go meet some people. Oh, hello everybody. Get out of here, what is this? All right, how you doing? Good to see you, everybody. Oh, I forgot the back pain, which is weird because that's what I deal with. That's my main thing. That's my go-to. My secret card. Toes gang. Sound off. Toes in the chat. How you doing? Welcome. Good to see you. Massive Effect. Welcome. The Brothers Brew. Deja. MZ1. Colt. Mock Shade. The Mrs. Tomato. Mamoon, Mrs. Tomato. Toes. Toes gang. Boredom. Why? Somebody always wants to know why toes. Why tomato? Why toes? Just because tomatoes, right? It's supposed to say tomatoes, but our community is a bunch of horrible individuals, and they took my very light-hearted, good-natured gesture of chanting the community fruit, and they stripped it to its toes, not in a good way. So now it's Toes Gang. Here we are. Reese, I saw you in here early, throwing out Toes Gang signs. Nugget, how you doing? When does 323 come out? I do not know, but I'm sure we'll talk about it a little bit today. It's like, it is a topic of the hour. In fact, I was just on Beyond the Verse podcast with Solace. That came out, if you don't know, that's another Star Citizens podcast, hosted by a good friend, Solace. He comes on our podcast. He was on the last episode, 2 episodes ago. And he just had me on. We talked about 323, when I think it might be coming out, when, freight elevators, what we think of all that, when the Zeus is coming out. So check that out if you are looking around for it. Should be on Twitter as well, if that's the way you find your stuff. Some people do that. Who knew? Corin, kind of Sims music to you. Yeah, it was a little Simsy, yeah. Greetings from Germany. Welcome, MZ. Maybe you need to relax, in which case I'd recommend you go into a dispensary for some grass. Hey, we're already touching grass. Do we need to also get it dispensed to us? Valis, thank you for the sub, my friend. 4 months of Toes Gang. But you've been in the community longer than 4 months. I know that to be true. Space Marine, yo. What's up, Colt? Zero. Basil. Corin, welcome. Brigadier Bo, my friend. Blam Smith, good to see you both. Welcome in. Echo Zeppelin. Hello. Mods in the chat. Love to see some mods in the chat. Thank you, guys. Zhao. Mr. and Mrs. Tomato, hope you are all well. Thank you, my friend. We got a couple sprinkles of rain today. Sky's just reminding us it's still there. Are we missing the questions? No. Toes. Beyond the Star Citizen Live hasn't started yet. Doesn't start for another 55 minutes. SEL with Chad is competing with my time slot. I'm going to be watching SEL with Chad. That's what we'll be doing. I'll probably, for the most part, let them talk. I'll definitely throw in my commentary over them at some points. I'll try not to interrupt anything important. But if you do want to watch it separately, I totally understand. I just need more nerf to the face to make my back... Reese, don't be rude. You recently pledged to Constellation Andromeda, so you're hoping 223 makes it better and not worse. Same. Guess it'll just be, we'll just see if it's affected by master modes heavily. Deja, thank you for the sub. Appreciate you. 5 months in. With the Prime, too. Nox, good to see you. Luna Maria, welcome. Got the tea, ready to go. Good to hear. You just had the next big idea for gamers. A footrest that goes under your desk. That is a little patch of live grass. Aww. How thoughtful. Get a little bit of grass in your toes. Look, a couple bugs in your computer. Who's ready for swimming? Yeah, we're gonna look at this this video here first before we get started today on cargo stuff and drama and all that. This is Inside Star Citizen, which just occurred yesterday. I hear it's not bad, and actually, for an episode that's dedicated to basically VFX, that's a hefty view count for 23 hours. So people have been very interested in this, and I'm guessing it got shared around a lot. We will see here how the water simulations are working in Star Citizen, how they're looking. So last time we caught up with Will, he was water guy. Prior to that, he was river dude, I think. But we've watched the development of water in Star Citizen from just a basic little flat jello death trap to getting some form of interactivity in rivers a couple years ago, to update to now we're about to see the actual simulation with what they introduced to us kind of at CitizenCon with all the effects. So we're going to jump in here. I am going to interrupt freely and prolifically, and I hope you enjoy watching as we do, and also, you know, the news that's coming up. Welcome and thank you for joining. This is where we kind of react to stuff. Anyways, let's go.
323 is just around the corner, and with that, a host of new gameplay and general life in the verse features. But it also includes a variety of technological improvements like the replication layer split, our initial implementation of Vulkan, image upscaling breakthroughs, and the subject of this week's show, changes to the water rendering and simulation system that were first discussed at last year's CitizenCon. So here now are the water wizards themselves to tell us more.
You've been doing this for a while now. Why do you think people are so interested in water?
In just any scenario is such a focal point. You go to a national park, you go see the rivers and the waterfalls, you're looking up stock photos of anything. It's people focus on the water because it is just so different to kind of anything else you find in nature.
Water looks
everything's
good.
Unique and everything's different, but
Water's great.
Water is just something else entirely. Wow, you're making me sound like I'm a water cult or something.
When you came aboard, did you imagine?
I grew up not near water for most of my life, and then I came and moved out here where my wife is from, and there's always water. And I do agree. It's more interesting than not water, at least to look at.
You'd be the moist master.
I still don't refer to myself as that name, try as you might, Jared.
Hydro homie?
I guess I didn't see it being such a focus, but I'm glad that it is. It's good fun. I really like it. It's not all water. Water's just the nice things I get to talk about more.
Does the water actually flow up on the shore like that?
Someone asked me when I was at SitCon recently, what makes water 3D in games? What's different to anything else? And the truth is, you have to work to make it look like water, because what we perceive as a volumetric liquid in real life, in graphics, we break down into different parts. You have the water
Hey, Jen. Really good to see you in chat, man. I hope you're doing well. Thanks for joining.
surface, which is what you see reflecting, what you can look through, where you see your waves and your foam and so on. You have the fog underneath and any particles floating around that makes you feel like you're inside water rather than just underneath a...
See, now, why would we need to feel like we're inside water? What y'all planning for?
surface above you. And then you have all the effects that go to selling that, whether it be the lighting, the caustics, the boundary when it's intersecting your visor,
Wow.
or any of the splashes or
great.
simulation that we're going to move on to.
That looked fantastic.
So we showed a slice of what we've been doing with water at SitCon last year, and what we put out into 323 is a few steps ahead of that. So we're going to show you what we've been able to do since. Getting the rendering right was really key to making sure that the sim looks right, because anything that catches your eye and tells you this isn't real is going to stick out far more than any work that we put into the sim.
It has to be said that the way we've entered water in the past in Star Citizen was not really up to scratch. So we have spent a lot of time trying to make it a lot more realistic. Water is quite an interesting thing to render. It has a very complex form in its dynamics and the way it animates, but optically it's very interesting too. In some ways, water is like glass. It's transparent, it refracts and distorts light which passes through it.
Yo, what the heck? From underwater? I guess I've never paid attention to that, if that even happens in games. That's cool.
It refracts and distorts light which passes through it.
Wow.
And it also has a surface which reflects the environment around it. In some ways, water is also like fog. It obscures the background behind it, maybe completely obscuring it. And certainly impure water will have suspended particles which themselves reflect light and give the water a cloudy hue. The water surface may feature foam, certainly where waves are occurring or at shorelines. One thing we wanted to do was improve the way we render foam on the ocean surface. This involved having it show detail when viewed close up, and also having it disperse in a very
Yeah, there's gonna be
naturalistic.
seaweed in this game. I hate touching seaweed. I mean, I know it's your realm, it's your domain, you deserve it. Just, you know, don't touch my feet.
Way where the foam breaks apart into small patches and the bubbles dissipate. One thing we did to get the details on the close-up views of foam is photograph a pan of soapy water. This gave us the required detail to project onto the foam surface and give the look we wanted.
Soapy water.
It's nice to think that all of the foam you see on any ocean in the verse started its life in a soapy pan of water in my kitchen.
Just some dish soap. Dish soap?
In Star Citizen, players can enter the water. This means they can view the water from underneath the surface. So we spent lots of time making sure underwater views look correct.
That looks great. I like the kind of fogginess.
Underneath
It looks
the surface.
good. I mean,
So we
it's
spent lots of...
I don't know how bad does underwater water look? This looks pretty good. I don't know what the standard for games is. I don't spend much time underwater because honestly, I don't. Ever since Super Mario 64 with that giant eel, and then Echo the Dolphin, I think those games put the fear of deep water in video games and generally in real life in me when I was pretty young.
time making sure underwater views look correct, showing fogging and so on. Similarly, when the player enters the water line may cut across the player's visor, and we took a lot of time getting that to render correctly and show it as expected.
I really think the improvements that have gone into the rendering of the water, especially the surface, the fog, it's leaps and bounds ahead of what was in 3.22. So from rendering, let's move on to surface simulation.
The rendering looks good.
What we wanted to do was provide some next-level visuals to go with all the things that can interact with water in our game. With the nature of the sandbox universe, there's just so many ways you can interact with it. And with all our spaceships and the colossal thrusters and wake...
It's funny because the water effects now, in some cases, look better than the normal ground effects with these ships. You don't get nearly enough cloud when you're landing in the Reclaimer. But now when you're flying over water, you got a nice cloud up behind you.
Ways you can interact with it. And with all our spaceships and the colossal thrusters and wakes they can throw off, we really wanted to be able to match that with the water rendering. The way we decided to approach this, instead of having a square that follows the camera, like many games do, of water simulation, we wanted to have something more powerful than this. We wanted you to be able to stand at the...
Let's talk about, I do see some comments coming up about like, why are they doing this? They spent 50 million on this. Let's talk a little bit about how this works. So what they've built is part of the game engine. And generally they're trying to finish most of the game engine before they put in the major parts of the gameplay and the content. Because at some point, if you are toying with the game engine while you're toying with the game, you get basically what we've had in Star Citizen all this time, which is like everything is constantly broken and just keeps re-breaking. So instead of doing all of these engine related things that may or may not mess with physics or gameplay later on in the beta phase, they're doing it now so that when other gameplay is put in the game, like say base building, they don't have to then add the water physics and suddenly it breaks base building and then they have to go back and fix base building and then they fix the water physics again and then everything is good. Another thing that makes this kind of make sense, and this is kind of secondhand knowledge. I haven't been told by a dev this or anything. This might have been something they said and I missed it. This is not just a water simulation. This is a cloth simulation. The water itself is still using the actual cloth tech they've developed. So it's not like they just went and spent a ton of money on one feature that's not going to be used for anything else. This very well may have some crossover with other things that are working in the game, like flags and armor and robes and bed sheets. So there are a few different reasons why this is happening. It's not necessarily because they want to just get flashy things into the game quickly. It lines up with the development and how it's working. And it's also something that they probably had to do for Squadron 42 anyways. This will make space battles much better. I've got a real worrying fact for you. Ever since 2015, this has not been solely a space game. And I feel like most of their development ends up being not about space, to be honest. But yeah, this is one part of the game. Most of you guys might not ever care about water, but it's something that they wanted to get done for the engine, and that's why it's here.
Water simulation, we wanted to have something more powerful than this. We wanted you to be able to stand at the top of a mountain and watch a ship fly across a lake underneath.
You can actually tell right there that it's a cloth simulation. Look at the water here.
We wanted you to be able to stand at the top.
Look how it's just stacking up and not breaking. Because it's not, they're just using something similar to what they do for their cloth simulations. Well, again, hearsay. But it makes sense. And, you know, from the game developers I talk to, it's like a really normal thing to do.
Top of a mountain and watch a ship fly across a lake underneath, drawing the wake behind it. And you wouldn't get that with a fixed square around the camera. So the approach we took was something called region-based surface simulation. This allows us to allocate areas where we need to be simulating and propagating water waves at any given moment, regardless of where the camera is. We can allocate and deallocate these as we need, and we can have a pool of them of any size depending on the spec of your PC. You can actually change the maximum allowed regions in your graphics options.
On medium setting,
Jeez.
you can have 32 regions simulated at the same time.
You can straight up see the ground under the water.
Setting, you can have 32 regions simulated at the same time. You can even go to a very high setting, which would give you as many as 128. To choose the best regions, we try to have the closest and most important ones show up and call the other ones. The fact that we sort it by the number of interaction and how strong they are means that only the most important ones will be shown on screen, which helps because having a little interaction right in front of you could be useful.
I didn't even see that star lifter.
And call the other ones. The fact that we sort it by the number of interaction and how strong they are means that only the most important ones will be shown on screen, which helps because having a little interaction right in front of you could be useful, but it might not be visible when there's a very big ship going right by and creating a huge wave.
Sounds like
That's
it's a
pretty cool.
very efficient system then.
We've tried to build a very efficient system.
In order to interact with things that are in the water, we first need to know that they are there. We've hooked up to the physics system so it sends us events when physical objects like boxes or the player or bits of ship debris are in or floating in the water. From there, we can work out how much water has been displaced and the velocity and pick an appropriate simulation.
Oh my god, they used to talk so much about buoyancy in their monthly reports. I'm glad to see it's finally being... Actually, I bet you we can find one of those clips from way back when they were first experimenting with this. How do you spell buoyancy? Yeah, look at that. 2021 buoyancy tests. And this is where I think this might have been Will actually might have been commentating on this. But this is where they were showing their first tests with this kind of tech inside Star Citizen. And as you can see, it wasn't buoyant. They were just kind of sitting there. And now, here we are.
From there, we can work out how much water has been displaced and the velocity and pick an appropriate simulation wave speed to match those. From there, we can apply forces to different texels of each sim region, which then propagate as we update that region over time. As well as responding to physical objects in the water, we can also hook this up to other...
Imagine shooting down a ship over a lake. How many What is that going to do to your graphics card when all the boxes hit the water? Should we all just look away? If you want to stay into the game, don't look at the boxes in the water. That's going to be crazy.
Input types.
For example, we could have a ship falling into water, creating a huge displacement. But we can also have footsteps near the beach. Or we could also have bullets and missiles and explosions. For the player, this means that you can be way more immersed in your game, as you can see the direct effects of what you are doing, how you are playing.
Man, they love getting these Star Wars shots in whenever they use the Scorpius.
On the water.
We wanted to be able to create the best visual impact we could without having an impact on your bandwidth and server performance, etc., especially as we move into bigger and bigger player counts. So our water simulation is done on the client and is visual only, and I think that way we get the best possible result out of it.
All of the information that we get from the different systems is then packaged and sent to the water buffer.
The water
Tying
buffer.
this all together is the water buffer. This allows us to take in inputs from multiple systems to the shape of the water surface and then use that information in lots of other systems, such as additional effects and, of course, rendering the water. Each patch of ocean is able to render with both the water buffer on and off. If it is off, it simply shows the ocean waves according to where it is on the planet. If it is on, it first populates the water buffer region with the wave data in that patch. We then add in any simulation data or data from other inputs. Then when we come to render the ocean patch, we look up again from this buffer where we have the total added together result of both the original ocean waves, the simulation, and any other inputs. To copy the simulation in, we build a mesh that covers parts of the water buffer that we're going to write into. The UV coordinates of each vertex in that mesh point to a specific part of the region atlas. This allows us to read specific parts of simulations and input them to other parts of the water buffer, and it allows us to do it in just one draw call. Having the water buffer set up like this to receive multiple inputs leaves the door open for implementing multiple types of simulation going forward. For example, beach crest waves could be input into this system. This means as well that any other system nearby can look up to see where the waves are and see how high the water is. We use this to drive a number of different effects.
Okay.
Having the water buffer allows us to have the graphic system query what nearby waves are doing. This allows us to render things called caustics. Caustics are where the ocean surface is focusing sunlight onto areas nearby. So, for example, it may focus light from the sun onto the seabed,
Jeez.
making certain white patches animate around. And similarly, light can be reflected upwards onto the side of a vehicle, for example. Caustics are a very important visual clue for water.
Hold on. How does this look compared to what they showed us before? Because they showed us almost this exact same shot back when they were first working on this with the 400i. Let me see if I can find this. Here we go. Oh my gosh, look at that's night and day difference. Oh, wow.
Leaving them out would
Wait a second. Hold the phone, Charlie.
ramp around.
Get out of here.
And similarly, light can be reflected upwards onto
Look
the
at
side
how
of a vehicle,
freaking
for example.
chaotic that looks on the right.
Important visual clue for
I mean, it is a river, so it would be more intense. But even just the subtlety of what's here on the left looks more realistic too. It looks worse? I don't know. I think that looks way better. This looks hyperactive to me.
Well, that was a look into all the
But that also could be the speed of the water that's flowing by.
The whole thing is pretty sweet.
I don't know. I feel like the new stuff looks a lot better to me. Looks like it references the actual water, which seems crazy to considering it's been reported to have very little performance impact. You just slow it down. All you got to do is slow down a video, make it look better.
I'm really happy with how it looks. The team has done a
All right, let's go back to what they were saying.
Making certain white patches animate around. And similarly, light can be reflected upwards onto the side of a vehicle, for example. Caustics are a very important visual clue for water rendering, and leaving them out would have meant the water did not look correct.
Well, that was a look into all the work that went into the water in 323. The whole thing is pretty sweet. I'm really happy with how it looks. The team has done a fantastic job. Planet Tech have got some really exciting things coming. I'm really, really excited to dive back into the planets of Star Citizen. I hope you guys enjoy it.
They haven't talked too much about Planet Tech lately, but V5 is coming up.
So what did we learn this week? Well, we learned that the updated rendering system makes water look more like water, that region-based simulation makes water behave more like water, and that the new water buffer itself hooks into all the other systems, like physics, which will get its own series of improvements down the line, to make water interact better with the variety of things that players throw into it. Boy, you love throwing things into the water, don't you? For Inside Star Citizen, I'm Jared Huckabee. Thanks for letting us share the process of game development with you, and we'll see you all here next week.
Thanks. No teaser today? No teaser today. All right, so that's water. Water. As we saw from some of those clips that we looked at, it's gotten better. It's, hey, that's us. Star Citizen. It's definitely gotten, why is it so difficult to find the official channel for these games? It's gotten better from those clips that we watched, for sure. And there we go again. It's not, there we are. But I think that there's still definitely work for them to do on it. It's looking good. It's a good addition to an all-around game engine, especially since we literally have planets that are all water. What is that? I want to say the Cano system. Star Citizen. Yeah, whatever planet this is here. It's got those like interstellar kind of waves. And I think this might have come out before Interstellar. Not sure. So there's like a lot of water that's planned for the game because of the planetary tech system. They also are using water to simulate lava. And the system they use to make rivers will also be used to make roads. Might have already been used to make roads. So the tech itself that they've been using has helped with other things development, but cool system nonetheless. When are we going to get scuba missions? Hopefully never. And somebody asked about boats earlier. They have been working on boat parameters, mainly for Squadron 42. I don't know. This is... Yeah, I don't know if this kind of thing is going to be in Star Citizen, but there are boats in Squadron at least. But yeah, we have some Star Citizen Alpha 3.23 discussion coming up here soon. I'm going to be getting onto the official Twitch, Star Citizen Twitch channel. I'll be watching it, and we will be kind of doing basically what we just did with the Inside Star Citizen episode. I think I might watch this again on Monday with everybody, because then we can pause and start it. I don't like doing these things live, but I figured this was a good enough time to do it because A, we just released a video on the channel about this cargo stuff, and I figured it'd be good to be right up front when this information's coming out so that we can see if anything is outdating that video. And B, I will be discussing everything that happens on this episode with Salty Mike later today in the podcast. Anybody who is a supporter, Twitch supporter, Patreon supporter, YouTube supporter, if you're linked into our Discord, you can actually come listen to that podcast live. It'll be listed in the events section. Just go ahead and RSVP. But besides that, I just want to make sure I have all of my information up to date before we jump into that. So I figured in order to like do a little itty bitty update getting into this, why don't we watch the ISC based on this again? And we actually can stop and start it, answer questions, and talk about cargo and all that stuff before we get right into the Star Citizen Live. Actually, though, why don't we start with another video that talks a little bit more about the actual cargo missions, since that's what is less covered. This is not as commonly talked about, I think, when it comes to these updates, but it is pretty important nonetheless. About 5 to 6 minutes long. listening. This is more along the lines of like, what are the missions going to be like for cargo haulers?
My name is Nick Etheridge, and I'm an assistant environment art director. So obviously, cargo isn't just about boxes. It's a big part of the game. Almost every aspect of the game has some kind of involvement with cargo. And I'm going to briefly go through
I'm not looking at the timeline. I want to make sure I know what's coming up so that when they answer these questions, we can discuss it.
We'll be introducing the Interstellar Transport Guild, as well as formalizing some of the main hauling and cargo companies that you'll be working with. As you do more hauling contracts, you will build up your reputation and relationship with the guild. This will lead you to gaining more lucrative contracts for specialized cargo and destinations, such as different forms of hazardous cargo, perishable cargo, riskier routes, and more. So what do I mean by hazardous and perishable? Well, as you know, there's lots of commodities in the game, and different commodities have different prices.
This is where this all falls apart, because the system of doing this is all based around these boxes. This is like the worst part. This is why I think everybody was, well, not everybody, but a lot of people were excited for this update, because all we can do in terms of cargo hauling is these boxes. And like, as Overdrive Initiative Phase 5 will tell you, those missions don't really work that well. Like, we tried it. What was that, last month? We tried to do 2 of these missions and we couldn't finish either of them, and it was just not fun. And like, it's been like that since 3.0. Literally 6 years ago. 6 years ago is when we started doing these. And they're about to get an update in this patch. So highly anticipated, and as you can see, it does a lot more than just giving us regular old boxes.
Properties. As you know, with events like Xenothreat, we have some special cargo types with different attributes, such as time-sensitive cargo or quantum-sensitive cargo. But those were a small selection for the event, and they were the two-handed carryable types anyway. We'll be expanding those types, plus lots more types, to the wider game and to these hauling contracts. So how does this affect gameplay? It will affect the choices you make when you are handling, storing, and traveling with the cargo. For example, with size and weight. Is it carryable? Do you need a tractor beam? What type of tractor beam do you need? Is it a handheld one or a ship tractor beam? Some containers can only be moved with ship tractor beams, for example. With health, has the container got good integrity? Is it holding fragile goods? Do you need to handle it with care? You can't just...
It's actually a question I didn't think maybe would have been worth asking for this show today. If you didn't catch what he said there, he basically acknowledged that weight will change, or not that weight will change, but rather that mass will outstrip tractor beams. And it does kind of happen already, but I would like them to expand a little bit in detail on how that's going to be affected, because I don't think they updated all of the mass for all of the commodities and all the items to work with tractor beams, but at some point you just straight up won't be able to carry certain things with your multi-tool. So important detail, but I don't know if that's been asked for Star Citizen Live. I hope it has.
Throw all containers about. For temperature control, do you need to ensure the container is powered so it can keep the contents cool? Or do you need to get to your destination quickly, otherwise the contents may perish? For security, can the container be locked or hacked? Can the contents be scanned, or is the container tracked? Will there be pirates or law after you when you're holding this container? Hazard containment. Is it radioactive? You might need the right protection against it, as you may have seen in Jens's presentation earlier. Can it explode? You might not want to put these containers on a more exposed section of your ship. And many of these attributes are going to be visually distinctive. So conversely, if you want to steal, for example, some cargo on a whole sea, which does have very exposed cargo containers, you might want to avoid shooting blindly and accidentally blowing up your potential profits.
Or
So look out
maybe
for those
that's my strategy.
Back to mission progression.
Not efficient.
We'll be introducing perks and rewards as part of fulfilling contracts and raising reputation with these companies. For rewards, we'll have branded ship and tool skins, branded clothing. There will be collectibles to decorate your hab, hangar, or ship, or you can put them anywhere you want. And there'll be more exclusive rewards that we'll be revealing later.
There we go. That's why it's delayed. They didn't want to give you guys in-game rewards. They're just holding off. Tinfoil hat moment.
Thank you. For perks, you'll get access to more items in shops and discounts on specific items. And all of these rewards and perks you need to earn in the game. You cannot just buy them. Next, let's have a look at freight elevators and hangars. I knew you'd be excited for this.
All right, so that's all the cargo discussion they did then. And honestly, I think the earlier design document thingy about freight and hangars is more interesting than that one. So we'll go back to that if we want to get caught up with it. But I think, Deja, I got your sub. I see you got a sub over there. Thank you so much for the support. Appreciate you. I don't think they even have goals up on the screen. Where'd you go, goals? There we go. Oh, and I did not set them for today. Wow. Oh boy. It's infinitely less tedious than current way of getting ground vehicles into your ship. What is? Now to rewind. Oh, for loading in vehicles? Yeah, I really can't wait to be able to load vehicles in the hangars. That was arguably one of the best parts of it. That's I often don't do missions because I know I need a vehicle for that mission and I don't want to fly all the way to an outpost to get a vehicle. Like just, what was that, yesterday? When we did that was Wednesday. When we did the distribution center thing, I literally just huffed it 2 kilometers on foot because I didn't want to go to an outpost to get a vehicle. I can't wait to be able to get those in the hangars themselves. Tussball! Tussball! I never understood what the proper pronunciation is, but also 5-month sub. Cheers to you, my friend. Space to... The bots are still doing their raffle thing, even though there's no raffle. They really need to stop doing that. We need to turn those off. Thanks for the support, mate. We also effectively lose the I menu, making it mostly physicalized. Yeah, it does. It removes a lot of... well, if you include the item banks and stuff, then it removes a lot of that kind of inventory comfort that we have right now. All right. They said that we wouldn't be able to get vehicles from the freight elevator, but we can still get vehicles from our home hangar. So there is that. And we are looking for design brief 2, I think. We talk a little bit more about. Let's see what they're talking about here. Suit holders and ships will work. I don't know about that just yet. I think that'll come with the lockers update that they do.
We intend inventory to evolve next.
And speaking of inventory changes, this leads us to what I think is one of the other very big transformations that's happening with these new sets of features.
So instead of having something like a magical bag of holding, you actually have a place where you can go to put your items, to store them, and you know that it's safe while you go out and do future travels. One thing that we want to do is really kind of physicalized inventory in terms of you need to be at a specific location to use that inventory and management. So this gives us a lot of benefit across the game where you know exactly where your stuff is and where to get it and where to go to organize it.
Now you'll be accessing that inventory via the freight platform and the hangars. You'll be using the freight platform to put it down. If you want to take something out, you use the freight platform to take it out. And you can use these inventory container boxes that I mentioned previously in order to optimize that kind of hauling. Let's say you realize you have a lot of guns that you want to take with you. Well, in the kiosk inventory management screen, you can move those items into a single box to aggregate them together so that you just use one pass with the tractor beam in order to move it all onto your ship. It also means that
So that's what we got in 322, which I freaking love. That was such a big, a helpful change for when you're like grouping stuff together and you want to hand stuff out. You can just put it all in a box and everybody can run up and get it as they need it, which has been great. But I lost my train of thought. Dang it. Oh well.
Use one pass with the tractor beam in order to move it all onto your ship. It also means that you'll have the ability to haul larger things in the game more efficiently by taking them and putting them into these larger boxes, such as ship items that maybe you purchased or stored.
Now I remember. They also have talked about the ability to attach loose items to the cargo grid, which should be interesting. So you don't necessarily have to put it in a box.
If you want to do some kind of underground assaulting mission, you just bring your big guns and everything, and you also load that into your ship. So everything is going to be really physicalized and no more kind of magic stuff popping here and there.
In addition to the freight platform access, we want to give players the ability to access smaller items without having to go to a hangar. And for this, we're going to add some kind of what I call an item bank. And this is just like a secure box kind of access point in the landing zone so that you don't have to go to a hangar, and it'll look very similar to the other personal inventory interactions. And you can move smaller items around there, such as handguns or metapins. But again, tying it to a physical location in the game and getting rid of this kind of magic. We're taking that and also applying it to the inventory in the vehicles. Right now in the game, you can hit I while you're inside of a vehicle, and you'll see a similar kind of invisible magical inventory for the vehicle. We're going to be getting rid of that and instead replacing it with a combination of access points like glove compartments in the ship, as well as those inventory container boxes, so that you'll still be able to haul personal items and larger vehicle parts.
I love the jankiness of that system. It's just all on display here.
Glove compartments in the ship, as well as those.
Look at this. Look at the cursor, the gun.
Be able to haul personal items and larger vehicle parts between locations in the game. But you'll have to do it in a way that's physically tied to actual entities that are attached to the cargo grid, as well as exposing it in a way for people to be able to reclaim them from a wreckage or maybe even pirate.
So, lots of changes coming with everything being physicalized, everything stored in boxes, and no more magic bag of holding. But how will you inventory your inventory? Well, that's where the new hangar kiosk comes into play.
Freight elevators are going to be implemented as an access point inside of player hangars, and you'll use a kiosk to interact with the freight platform in order to call things up from your inventory or to put things into your inventory.
The player controls the freight elevator through the freight elevator kiosk because we have to coordinate between 3 different doors. The kiosk is what determines when the door should open, when the door should close, when the cargo get loaded and all that stuff. So that is the physical thing that's basically going to bring up cargo for you and then also like take cargo from you when you sell it.
The kiosk is going to be the center point of the hangar. This is really where you'll manage everything. So it's not just the cargo stuff that you manage through the kiosk. You will be able to manage your inventory, basically bringing up the stuff, sending it back. It's also going to be those small items. You also going to have some sort of inventory box that you will be able to interact with, to put stuff in it. Basically, everything is going to go through that kiosk. So everything is central to the kiosk.
It's easy to see how all of this will redefine the open sandbox experience at the core of Star Citizen's persisting.
It's a really big change. Just whoopsied its way out of 3.23. Well, 0.0. Guess this patch will still be known for it if it makes it in one of the other patches.
Universe. But what if a cargo career isn't for you? What if you just like to run the occasional mission? Don't want to spend your time loading boxes or prefer speculating on the market economy around it all? Well, the purview of Nepu is to construe for you, too.
We are going to have missions in the game that latch on to this. So for example, you'll be able to take a mission where a corporation like Crusader will ask you to haul their cargo for them. And this is an opportunity for players to engage with this kind of gameplay of hauling and manual loading without having such a large investment in the game. Right now, cargo has largely been required to have a large investment, speculation, and risk on the part of the players. And where we're going is we're going to be reducing that risk for certain sets of players who don't want to engage with that kind of speculation, while still allowing them to have this kind of fun, manual loading, kind of packing experience. On the other hand, if the thing that you are more interested in is that kind of speculation and that kind of trading and wheeling and dealing and trying to just cut the best profit, we are still going to have a certain amount of automated loading in the game. It just won't be instantaneous. You'll have to use a service. It'll cost a little bit more. It'll take time. You won't have access to your ship while it's being loaded. But, you know, depending on the kinds of gameplay that you're looking for, if you enjoy that more physical,
I really like that
loaded,
shot.
It'll cost a little bit more.
This one, just done with it. Go on the space station. Why are you chilling on the ship? Go relax.
Or it'll take time. You won't have access to your ship while it's being loaded. But, you know, depending on the kinds of gameplay that you're looking for, if you enjoy that more physical kind of gameplay, we'll have that there for you. If you're more interested in just kind of profit trading, we'll also have a path for you there too. So I think in this kind of new world of cargo and all these new features that we're coming out with, we're trying to make sure that for all the people that are looking to play with this, that there's something there for them. And of course, all of this comes with a large amount of economy tuning that's going to need to rebalance things now that we have.
That is also something that doesn't get talked about much when it comes to these changes. And I wonder, they haven't talked about it much themselves. I wonder if the economy changes are tied to this at all, or if they're going to come in 3.23.0 anyways, because they've done a lot of economy updates that they need to bring into the game. Ship prices, item prices, commodity prices, even mission payouts, I think, are getting changes. So we'll have to see what comes up there.
Of physicalized movement, guaranteed friction on the transactions. So all of these things we can use to rebalance it and hopefully make it to where if you're interested in taking high risks, there's a path for you to maybe get a better profit. Vice versa, if you don't want to, there's still a way for you to be able to play the game and not be overly punished. That's going to be an ongoing endeavor, and we'll talk more about that as we get closer to release.
So lots of changes coming to Star Citizen with the work being done by the North America Persistent Universe team. So let's go ahead and let them bring it all home and see if we can't maybe just sneak in one more tiny, big addition people have been waiting for too.
Another big thing that we're working on is
This is the first thing that was delayed out of the patch. So we've known for a while this wasn't going to be in, but I do wonder if this now makes it in with everything else, since everything else has been pushed back a little bit.
unique item recovery. This is something that the fans have been asking for a long time, and we're hoping that it's really going to finally resolve this problem of losing items or losing items mid-mission.
It looks like a simple subject, but there's a lot of little things to think about, like people buying some gear, giving to their friend and claiming it back. What happens to the version that was given to their friends, or even like if your buddy gets looted by somebody, how do we want to kind of cope with that?
So one of the ideas that we have running right now is that you would have a lost and found within your hab. So if you're playing, your mission crashes, you lose your progress, but you can go back to your hab, restart that mission, grab that item, and continue on where you left off. And we're really hoping to apply this to subscriber items and other unique items as well.
Goswell, thank you for the super chat on YouTube. Appreciate you.
Just really trying to build out a feature set that can incorporate a lot of different ships that can incorporate your teams, that allows you to be more in control. It allows you to try to find the best ways that work for you and your group. And right now, that's the main thing we're working on.
Our universe is big. We're going to keep building more systems, more planets, and we really want to find a way to make that exciting. We want to have you take goods from one planet to the other, explore places that you haven't seen, loading up, organizing all of your gear, all of your equipment, having it snapped to a grid, keeping everything safe. And it's a huge part of Star Citizen and where we want to go with the game.
That is a summary of that we're working towards for Physicalized Cargo. Now, this is going to be an ongoing process, starting with the first set of changes coming out with 320, automated loading in the whole with the whole C, and the new packing system that's
which
coming
still
out
doesn't
there.
work.
But we'll continue this work of
Consistently.
adding these things like freight elevators, hangar instancing, persistent hangars, inventory containers, all of that, and continuing into subsequent releases. So I hope you enjoyed hearing about it, and I think I'll be back a few more times to get into more details about those things.
Oh, he's
I look
about to
forward
be back.
seeing what they're developing in the future, and
I don't remember.
and then also showing it off to the community and team.
What? Wait, why? Why did they have Todd Pappy come on for like literally 6 seconds at the end of that episode? Was he in any other part of this? That was so random. He's not anywhere in this whole episode. And then at the end, they're just like, oh yeah, and
Developing
Todd
in the future
too. They didn't even introduce him. That's so strange. So yeah, that's a little bit of a preview. We could watch part 1 too. I don't think we have time for that. It's mostly about the same stuff. I think it actually talks a little bit less about the freight elevators or no, it does talk quite a bit about the freight elevators. This would be a good episode to watch, but why don't we do conversation instead? Where the heck is the episode? Should be back here somewhere. Ah. We need a Todd sound or emote or something. Wait, Todd? Oh, Todd. Todd Pappy. Ah, Todd. Go miss seeing that guy's face. I hope he does maybe like return back to the project if whatever's going on with family does resolve. Just, I don't know. Fun watching him. That's why he left, because of that. He edited it in. You were only vaguely listening and thought I said, why did Todd Howard show up? I thought that's what you meant when you said we need a Todd sound. I would love to have a Todd Howard video meme pop up on screen. We've already got the Chris Roberts one, which for some reason doesn't work. You guys don't hear this, right? Toes. No, I don't think. That doesn't seem to play anything for you, which is unfortunate because it's a really good quote and I'd love to keep it on here, but I'll have to figure it out. I'm thinking 16 times the detail. Or it just works. I don't know. There's so many freaking usable Todd quotes. That would be fun. You heard the toes? No, that was because my man Maverick over here threw a sub down on the stream. 7 months over on Twitch. Thank you, dude. Appreciate you. My stream deck needs a good adjustment. Everything needs a good adjustment. In fact, I need to plug in input. Oi. To be honest, I think Microsoft, when they come, it's funny to me that Microsoft of all companies is going gung-ho in on AI, and they haven't reincarnated Clippy in a way that runs Windows. Why the heck, like, why can't I go on to my Microsoft AI or whatever? They're trying to force this down our freaking nose holes everywhere they could possibly. We've got AI, we got AI. Screw your AI. They keep doing all this stuff with AI, yeah? And then they can't tell me why this program doesn't play this audio. They know the program. They have every single file that the program could possibly contain. They have the instruction manuals. They have the troubleshooting manuals. This AI could read anything in the program, right? I mean, I figure Microsoft is doing that already. Why can't it tell me why this file isn't playing in this program? What's the deal, man? You've got internet access. You've got all this access, Microsoft. I've already sworn you my firstborn child. Sorry, Mrs. Tomato. This is because I got a Zune. You know how they are. Like, I've done all these things. Fix my computer. Cortana is Windows AI assistant. No, I think they're like getting rid of Cortana, kind of. They're starting to do... What are they calling it? I can't remember what they call it. They wanted us to forget about Clippy. It's a good song, Forget About Clippy. There goes our first kid. Chris Roberts is secretly here. He's in chat. Chris, if you're here, can you call me on the red phone? It's been a while. We haven't talked. Once the armor boxes are near cargo boxes, you can then drag them inside. Anybody else have a Zune? So Star Citizen's channel should be like starting soon, right? There they are.
Stick it on there. And then also...
Yeah, and
wait, don't they start at
go a little bit further
4 p.m. UTC?
One of the things that we want to be like, kind of just like a philosophy. I'll put it like this.
Wait. Hold on. They've been going for an hour and nobody told me. I'll just wait for it to go on YouTube then. Didn't they say 4 p.m. UTC? Am I crazy? Am I insane? Or are my times wrong? Oh my god. I don't know what time is anymore. Yeah, 4 p.m. UTC. Did we like switch time zones? Am I crazy? No, I know you guys were saying that. I thought you were saying that because I had Jared on in the background in a video. I thought you thought I had it paused. I'm so freaking confused. If I am hold on. What UTC time is it? I swear it's about to be 4 p.m. UTC. Yeah, okay. So they started an hour early. They just whoop. 4 p.m. UTC was an hour ago. You shut your mouth. I know my UTC. We have to plan all of our podcasts off of it. All right, so I guess I will wait for them to finish their episode, and then we will jump in and watch it on YouTube. That way we can actually pause. That's so weird. Why did they do this? Hold on, I gotta close this down. All right. So until then, we've got other stuff to talk about, I guess. Chose me over Jared, just saying. Thank you, I appreciate it. We'll get there. We're gonna get there anyways. Did I see maybe on Spectrum how many people, mostly early backers, are mad with 323? No, but I'm gonna assume that if there was a poll that ran on Spectrum, it's probably a little bit skewed. Guy with the gray beard exudes dad energy. Is he Chris Roberts? This is Jared, and he is indeed codenamed Space Daddy from what I've seen. That's not my name for him. It's come across my desk. Letterheads and stuff, you know. It's 4 a.m. over there. Maybe that's what they meant. It's BST in UK now. Clocks went forward an hour. Well, they better put BST instead of UTC then, you know. Yeah, it started early. We're gonna wait until it goes up on YouTube because trying to watch it halfway through is gonna be a painful experience. So they can pregame Bar Citizen. It's Friday at 5 p.m. in the UK. If anybody is Space Daddy, it'd be Jared. He gives us information, gives us love, and He is mean to us sometimes, and he makes the original Star Citizen dad jokes. Like, this dude's literally been slanging bad Star Citizen dad jokes, secretly good Star Citizen dad jokes for, I want to say 9 years? 9 or 10 years? He's been around the block. So he knows our shit. Let's go back to, I guess, like, I kind of started this. I don't know if this one is as interesting as the part 2 when they're talking about all of the cargo stuff. Where have they talked about more cargo stuff, to be honest? Let's see. This one. This is the new one. This is just from a couple weeks ago. I'm just burning time till they get this episode up on YouTube, you know? And he scolds chat like a disappointed father. He's definitely gotten more more clap back, I think. Me and Mrs. T were talking about this, what, a month ago, 2 months ago? I don't know. We were talking about how it feels like they've got a little bit more backing, you know, now that they've been able to talk a little more about Squadron. She was saying they can, you know, they can talk like they've got more to back them up. Not saying that they've released a game, of course, but there's more. They can speak towards a lot more, I think, of where the time was going than before CitizenCon, at least. Okay, so this is the most recent cargo/freight thing that they've done. Man, now that Star Citizen is live, I've just got FOMO. I wish you could rewind on Twitch, but, you know, it's Twitch. So let's listen to what they have to say here. Maybe by the time this is done, they'll be done over on Twitch or on a Star Citizen Live. Why do they stream on Twitch and not YouTube? I don't know. I'm thinking they stream on YouTube, but they leave it unlisted and then just make it public, and that's how they get it up so fast after it's done. But they really like Twitch. Really into Twitch.
Alpha 323 and beyond, its next major evolution is...
Honey said it a little bit more thoroughly. A bit more confidence behind their words so they can talk a little bit more shit to people. As I said, I think they've had enough crap from people. They've gotten a lot of crap. They get crap for, like, the most minuscule things. And I understand people are like, well, you know, do your stuff and we won't pile on you for smaller things. But it'll be like, why are they hosting a convention? Because it's great marketing. Why wouldn't you? If you know people are going to spend a ton of money to come out to a convention to watch your announcements and drum up the hype and all that stuff, wouldn't you? You know, there'd be a tomato con. Mrs. G, run that through the roof. Sure hope we get decent gameplay loops and more things to do in game. Hey man, that is a universal hope, I think. You're not alone.
Less about the places you'll go and more about the ones you'll start and come back to. Oh! Now, hangars, whether they're persistent, instanced, personal, or staging, make up the next frontier of cargo gameplay. And we went to Chad and his team for an early look at where they're going and how they're progressing. Let's find out more.
So yeah, we've had a couple ISCs before to talk about the new cargo and hangars features coming, but now that we're here and about to release things, we want to talk a bit about how that impacts your play experience, even if you don't care at all about cargo.
Oh, Scott's totally making a joke there. I can see that one.
So let's start with persistent hangars. What are they and what does that mean? So a persistent hangar is an instance hangar that is going to be assigned to you whenever you select your home location when logging into the game for the first time for it.
Here's what I want to know. Oh, that's not a flattering spot to stop. I'm sorry. Let's give you, there you go. A little somber. Persistent hangars are going to happen with these personal hangars at home, right? And I'm thinking we will get however many hangars you have with your account. Everybody probably gets one hangar with their account. Those who got the game packages with hangars probably get those permanently on other landing zones, maybe. Why aren't they telling us? I guess because they haven't designed it. I really wish they would have more to say about, you will be able to buy hangars in certain places. Let's say you're like a cargo hauler and you run a bunch of different routes through different systems, but you often find yourself landing in the Nexus system. So you buy a hangar there. Wouldn't it be cool if they could just tell us, like, yeah, you buy a hangar here, you pay a certain amount of fees, it's always available to you when you get there, yada, yada, yada. Or even better, what if they talked about renting hangars? Like, yeah, you can rent a hangar for 2 days or 30 days or 5 days, and you have to pay the fees for that, but you can use it as storage, you can use it for this and that and that. But they're only talking about persistent hangars at our home locations. I hope we start talking realistically about the idea of persistent hangars in other locations soon too.
For a patch. When that happens, what we do is we determine the largest ship that you have and then entitle to you a persistent hangar that's of the size needed to facilitate that ship. Whenever you go into that hangar into the game, that hangar at your home location is always your hangar, and you'll be able to use it like your home. You'll be able to keep things in the hangar, you'll be able to leave things around, you can invite friends in, you can treat it like your own little oasis. So let's talk about, for these personal hangars, how do you actually get into them?
Please proceed to site landing bay.
You can make a request via ATC for landing, and when we do that, we'll check to see if you have any personal hangars entitled to you. You'll be able to enter in using largely the same methodology that you do now, land, and then you can just hang out in there. As far as what can you actually do with your personal hangar and what kinds of things can you decorate with it, what we're going to do is allow you to call anything.
Sorry to interrupt, guys. Yeah, Matt, they do talk about that kind of stuff a little bit, but it always changes a little bit from like those early pledge rewards to the actual design that they get in game. So I'd love to hear what their new ideas for that are.
What kinds of things can you decorate with it? What we're going to do is allow you to call anything in your inventory up via that freight elevator. You can pick it up off the freight elevator either with your hands or using the tractor beam and just strew it about your location however you pick.
Also, and I understand the fear people have with this.
However you pick.
Like if you're thinking, it's hard to imagine this game finished. It's hard to imagine this game as like a game where you're not doing everything because there's not enough content and all the things to specialize you. But loading ships, I feel like, is not gonna be as terrible as it might sound, because you're probably just not doing it very often, you know? Or when you are doing it, you can just get the space station to do it for you, the landing zone to do it for you. This kind of situation where you're just loading a few boxes and you got to put it on a dolly and wheel it out like that, that feels more like it's actually mission specific, you know? Because when are you dealing with 1/8 SCU boxes? I don't know, it feels cumbersome to a point, but I don't think we're going to be running into that situation a ton unless we're specifically cargo haulers or people who have to deal with cargo a lot, in which case it comes with the territory.
Also in the hangars, you'll notice several new kiosks. We have the freight elevator kiosk, which has a brand new UI and inventory system to deal with large volumes of cargo.
You're going to have on the left-hand side a section that is showing the contents of the platform itself. And on the right-hand side, similar inventory layout with all your armor and weapons and items.
And then you decide what you want to spawn in the freight elevator. The freight elevator then comes up, and then you can start doing like loading and unloading of various cargo into your ship and so on.
If you're considerate about how you're loading things and you're trying to optimize your loading times, it'll give you a lot of power as far as, for example, making sure
I guess Jumptown would be a place where you're doing this a lot too.
Certain kinds of things are front-loaded on the platform to make your multi-crew loading as streamlined as possible. And anything that's in your inventory, you're going to be able to call up Some things you might have to put into an inventory container box. We're talking 8, 16, 24, even 32 SU size container boxes that you can put large items in. Now you can raise that up on the platform, including in collections, transfer that very quickly onto your ship, and then take them to another location. In your personal hangar, you'll also have access to several other kiosks, starting with the item bank.
Which are another form of kiosk, which you could almost consider like a small freight elevator in a way, in that you can retrieve personal items such as clothing, armor, and weapons.
I really like this. This was something that I kind of liked in Cyberpunk too. That you could access your inventory at a physical location anywhere throughout the city, as long as you could find that location. Like, it's not a crazy idea. Like, it's something that is in a game like Cyberpunk, which is very mainstream kind of game. I guess it's probably a little bit different in the sense that you're always in the city in Cyberpunk, so there's that. Like, once you leave your city or your space stations, you don't have these item banks available in the rest of the game. But as long as you're in a civilized space, I like this as a solution for keeping stuff together while kind of getting rid of the inventory, the all-seeing inventory. Your stash. Your stash, yeah.
The item that's being delivered will be delivered in a tray that's in the same machine. So you interact that kind of like you interact with a loot box and you get that out. So no other player can actually physically get anything from your local inventory.
And these item banks can be found not just within the hangars, but also the wider location, such as your hubs and other key areas of a location to retrieve your personal items.
These things are all over the cities. Like, you're gonna have to go to these kiosks, but you're not gonna feel like you're limited from your inventory. I think they probably have some kind of goal of anywhere you are in the city, you can turn and find an item bank.
Since you can't interact with your inventory anymore at any given time, it means like we need to have enough item banks around each location so you don't block each other from accessing a terminal, right?
It's just a quicker way to get a quick gun or a few meta pins or your armor without having to load it up from the freight elevator. And the last kiosk that I want to talk about is the ASOP terminal,
which we have positioned in the hangar so you can request your ships from within the hangar and not just the spaceport.
So they will still remain in the spaceport. So if you don't have a personal hangar in your location, you can request your ship also from there.
What we're doing is we're changing the way that the ships spawn in the game.
You can now request your ships from within the hangar and they will appear to you, but they won't just come out of thin air. What happens is the whole of the floor will open up.
You get this like amazing view of the hangar, the lights dim, the doors open.
And the landing platform will be rising up towards you and your ship will be there.
We try to balance it in a way that it doesn't take too much time for you, but also that it feels like it has the right weight to it, but also you don't have to wait for it too long.
So now you have a seamless transition and a realistic way of storing your ships away.
Additionally, you can do clever things like call up a smaller vehicle, such as a ground vehicle, drive it off, and then call up a larger vehicle. Then you'll have access to your ground vehicles without having to go to another location. You'll be able to call up multiple ships and maybe have one person fly off with
the idea of this not being frustrated. It's gonna be frustrating, definitely. I mean, a lot of things in 323 are actually kind of frustrating because we built up habits around it. But this is ultimately the point of the game, that you're supposed to actually think about where your things are and why they're there, and make the call of what you need and what you don't. It's supposed to be a very physical game.
One ship, call another one, have another person in your party fly up with another ship. Or you can just call up a ship, change your mind, and then call up a different ship without having to leave or anything like that. It gives you a lot of flexibility. And I can already tell what some of you are thinking right now. We're not going to let the system eat your body and store it into the inventory or anything like that. We'll make sure to account for that such that if there's a blocking change that happens, we'll stop the process, go back up to the default state, and then tell the player about the issue so that they can account for it. If you do want to jump into the platform just before it closes and fall to your death, you can fall to your death if you want to.
So this is really cool, and we're really happy to get this in. It's been discussed for some years now, and it's been a very tricky thing to fit in, and certain tech's required to be able to do it. You'd be able to have this hangar your own space and call your own ships and do a lot more within the hangar now.
Now that we're adding all of this new facility to the hangars in the game, allowing them to be persistent, adding these freight elevators, adding the ship platform, there's a lot of more things that we have to have in these hangars for them to be useful for what we're adding.
So the hangar sizes had to increase quite a bit. We did not want to do that originally in the beginning, but soon when we did prototyping, we figured out that not all the hangars, as I said, like the low-tech hangars in particular, are quite old by this point. Not all of them were to the same standards or metrics. So we figured that with the landing pad now going down, you had this gap for like quite some time before the doors close. So there was a very narrow walkway for the player sometimes. So we had to rejig some things and made it actually large.
Beautiful. It's a blessing to the ears for C1 owners.
Have had significant size changes. So the XL is about 20% larger, and the large is about 30% larger. So certain ships that were a little tight can now fit a lot more easily.
So you don't feel like your wings almost scratch the walls of it.
Or
so
definitely do scratch the walls.
Natural and better to the play experience to land in your hangar now.
The medium is the same, but taller. And the small has not been changed.
Look at this.
But taller.
Look at how much space there is between those wings, everybody. We're eating good.
And the small has not been changed. But we have classified ships to fit into the medium that were once classified as small. So hopefully a much better player experience than there has been before. And it's been interesting to take the design of an elevator and the door and extrapolate that across multiple sizes. So in some cases you can kind of widen out the door and use the same shapes, and in some cases you need to think really about how those shapes work, and sometimes they don't work within a small door, for example, when it did work in a much wider door. So we've had to play around with that and keep them looking consistent with each other, but also adapt those shapes to work for each size.
So this is an actualization of a long-term goal for this entire cargo career, to make the whole thing feel more real. It means that the whole experience is going to allow for manual loading. It'll also feel more rewarding because it'll give you more interesting choices to make throughout the process. It'll make multi-crewing a more interesting and useful experience. It's going to just make the whole experience a more skill-intensive and interesting and tactile. Another thing that we've talked about is automated loading in the games. This allows you to still do commodity trading without needing to actually move the boxes yourself. It will be an option in the commodity terminal.
See, now here's the part where I'm wondering why they don't get ahead of the messaging here and talk about the fact that this will eventually turn into NPCs doing the loading. I wonder if that's something they just don't care to mention here. They didn't really just think about mentioning, or maybe if that's something that's still up for question. But it kind of hints at the idea that NPCs will be able to help with these processes going forward, which I think a lot of people are curious about. And sometimes I wonder, like, what are the designs or what are the ideas behind communicating certain things and not other things? Maybe ISC would just be way too long if they started telling us everything that was supposed to come with these systems.
Without needing to actually move the boxes yourself.
Think that ship has sailed? I don't think so.
In the commodity terminal, whenever you go and you pick the destination inventory, you'll be confronted with several options. One is the location inventory. The next will be all your ships that are at the location. If you choose a ship, you'll have the option to have it be automatically unloaded or loaded for you, of course, with an added cost. The ship has to be stored to allow for the transfer, and it will be time locked while that transfer is occurring.
Scott, I absolutely do want to see NPCs standing on boxes that they're supposed to be loading. The longer they take, the more I can charge them, man. Come on.
Different locations in the game will have different amounts of time.
Wait. No, the longer they take, the more they'll charge me. Crap. I guess I lose here.
Places that are more optimized for trade are going to allow for faster transfer. You'll be able to still do the trading. You just have to wait a little bit and pay a bit more money. So your profits won't be quite as good in that case. Once the automatic loading process is finished, you can just go to the ASOP terminal in the hangar, access it, raise it, and go off, and you're on your way. If you care about cargo, this is going to be transformational. But even if you're not interested in cargo at all, it's still a foundational change for the game.
It's still going to f you up.
Fundamentally changes principles about inventory, physicality, and your play experience.
The work's ongoing. We're nearly there. I think the team's done a great job on this.
Okay, here is why I think they will still have NPC loading. This is from... Gosh dang it, stop. Too many files. Hold on. We got an AI file here that will show us I saw it. Where'd it go? I keep seeing it and then a new box loads in. Here we go. So this is actually showing their NPCs understanding how to load and unload a space from box stuff. Rather, this is just showing the trolley and them moving back and forth in the elevator and the trolley. But I also, come on, I know there is. Dang it. I know I've got this. Come on. Sometimes I miss some video clips. It's from the AI feature. This is navigating, crawl space, perception, detection. All right, you know what? We can find it. We can find this real quick. This is important. This is a big part of the game, and I think it also... Is it this one? Ah, here it is. It's also part of one of the biggest asked questions in this game. Can I get NPCs running crew on my ship? Can I get help running my ship if I'm in a big ship by myself? And this is a big part of, you know, tracking whether or not that is realistic and whether that's happening. So check this out.
I want to answer a question in chat right now from Creeks.
Characters that they will eventually
no updates, because that's where the updates would be.
Cool. Another thing that we are doing, this is a lot for characters that they will eventually be also useful.
Did you just say CIG are the worst communicating company in the world? Have you looked at what gaming companies do in this good godforsaken planet? Oh man. CIG's got some real problems with communication. But that's about as hyperbolic as you can get. We're nearly there gets delayed. We're even more nearly there. We're almost nearly there. We'll be nearly there soon. Ish. Discord on the chat. Folks, by the way, it was mentioned earlier, we'll be discussing all this stuff and the delays and everything that's said in Star Citizen Live today. I'm going to have Salty Mike on the podcast later in a few hours, actually. So if you are on the Discord, or maybe you're not, if you just got a subscription today on Twitch or YouTube, or it got gifted to you at some point and you see that you have it in chat, join us on the Discord. Mrs. T dropped the link in the chat, and come hang out in the podcast room. You can come listen. You'll be muted, but you can listen and watch live before it's posted on Monday. Consider it. When will then be now? Never. Okay. So here's kind of what has me thinking NPC loading and unloading is still a thing.
To hire, right? So these are Cool. Another thing that we are doing, this is a lot for characters that they will eventually be also useful to hire, right? So these are NPCs that can actually systemically take boxes, crates, and load them into your ship, load it into a trolley, and then use the trolley to move it. So as you see here, there's really like some cool features we worked on. First, all those things are usables. They actually pick up the boxes. They understand how to pick it up. They slot it into the trolley, so they understand that now there are different actions that they can do just because the crate is attached. So there are different metrics that we calculate for where you can put the box on. So right now, for example, the NPC understands that you need to put it on top of another box that is put on the trolley. This is all our slotting functionality, basically. It's like a usable is attached to another usable, gets slotted into that based on our description, and then they can basically use that. As you see, there's still.
They probably just use tractor beams for the bigger SCU boxes.
Not see it anymore. Eventually, at least.
Or like those crates. But yeah, tractor beams.
But like the character now understands that the trolley is full, and now he can unload the trolley and place it into some specific locations, So this eventually will be really useful for, allowing an NPC to load and unload your ship.
Oh yeah, cargo elevators, big time. What are the green cylinders around the trolley?
So there are two things. The height, the taller one, that one is what we call alignment slots. So it's where the NPC needs to be to perform a specific operation on the object that is on that location. And the small one are enter position, so that is where.
So yeah, that's mainly what I was looking at in terms of that. And this is March of last year. This is 1 year ago. So I think this is still something they're gonna work on, but they don't really talk about it yet. Now I'm seeing that the Star Citizen Live has finished. So why don't we hop on over there? /Star Citizen, I'm guessing, and watch this together. Yeah, there it is. Cool, an hour and a half. All right, folks. So Star Citizen Live just ended, and it's with Chad McKinney. A lot about cargo stuff. I'm really hoping we get into some good questions about the nitty-gritty cargo hauling and how it's going to look and work, and maybe some more stuff with reputation. We'll see what happens. Either way, thank you for joining me for this. I hope you enjoy whatever they have to say, and also my annoying content, my commentary over the top. Let's get into it. I'm sure it will happen at some point here. Where does it even start? Oh my god, it's so long. Okay, now let's really start.
And in this case of this week, we're answering questions. We're taking questions. We're putting questions to the developer. It's clear I've been not doing this for 3 weeks. Hi, little buzz thing. Joining me on the show this week is an esteemed friend of the show, a man who probably needs no introduction, but we're going to do it anyway. Let's throw it to Cargo Chad. Cargo Chad, how you doing, man?
Cargo Doing Chad. Good. How about yourself?
I'm in a mode where I'm assigning nicknames.
He's even got the squat rack in the back.
Cargo Chad, and there's the Hydro.
My God, really?
The homies, and I'm pretty sure next week's show is about.
You can't pause by spacebar on Twitch. What year is it?
Commander stuff in Arena 3. I think I called Duncan Arena Man. I don't know. I'm at a point where I clearly should be stopped, and nobody is. So yeah, we're going to jump right into it because we have a lot of questions and stuff. A few weeks ago, maybe 4 weeks ago, we had an Inside Star Citizen.
Pedro, thank you for the memberships on YouTube, my friend. Appreciate you, dude. Thank you very much.
Hangars, precision hangars, personal hangars, freight elevators, all a bunch of really exciting stuff for the non-combat oriented citizen, of which there are many, many of you out there. I count myself as one of them. This is work that's all targeted for Alpha 323, and recently, as I'm sure most of you or many of you might have noticed.
Sorry, last pause before we get straight deep into this. If you just got gifted a membership, folks, remember You now get membership perks. Go on the Discord, watch the exclusive videos, come join us for the live podcast in a couple hours.
With this week's roadmap roundup, it's a hard thing to say out loud. With this week's roadmap roundup, it was recently revealed that the instance hangars, the freight elevators, the item kiosks, everything that's in that little cargo package, that cargo career update that's still coming in the Alpha 323 branch, would not be in the initial release. The initial release being 323.0, and then there might be a 323.1 and a 323.2, and so that stuff's still being worked out and determined. It will still be in one of the subsequent releases, whether that is 0.1, 0.2, whatnot, remains to be seen. Joining us, so Chad, we're just going to jump right into it. Tell everybody who you are, because in case somebody didn't see the show, tell everybody who you are, what you do for Star Citizen, and what happened.
Yeah. So starting with the easy questions.
What happened?
Yeah, my name is Chad McKinney. I'm a senior lead gameplay engineer, currently in the Los Angeles studio. Mainly focused on Star Citizen, so I'm part of the core gameplay group. I have a kind of sub team in that group called CGP 7, but we mainly focus on what I would say are like the features that make Star Citizen like unique. So like the big MMO style gameplay features. Cargo is like certainly one of the big ones, one of the big careers, right? So our team is really focused on those features. And certainly over the last several years, that's been a really big focus for us. So any of the big cargo stuff that you've seen coming out over that time, physicalized cargo, Hull C, all this stuff has been my team's main focus. But we've worked on a lot of other stuff throughout the years. But yeah, like, so what happened with cargo?
I actually just released a video that references those changes on the main channel if you want to check that out.
Well, the first thing I was like, hey, is like, I don't know that there's anyone that's like more personally invested in seeing this like through than I am. So it was disappointing to come to the conclusion that we did need to pull it from 323 or push it into, a point patch, but it was the right call. And there's a lot of factors that went into that. Just to kind of get into it, like the first thing is that it's a really, really big, it's not even, I don't even think you can call it a single feature set. It's like a whole change to the way that the game works from top to bottom in many different aspects. So whenever we started development on this last year, we come up with a certain schedule. And at the end of the day, if you look at where we're hitting, while it is disappointing to see it slip, we're really close actually. It's like, it's kind of like throwing a dart at like a target like a mile away. We are a bit off. We missed the target, but we're not so far off. It's not going to be like 6 months from now or anything like this.
Yeah, it sounds like it's a couple months sort of delay. If they were pushing it to this point where they delayed it at this point, I know tinfoil, they were just trying to hype up the patch until the last minute and then drop this feature out of it. Honestly, I think they would have waited longer if they were trying to do that. This just seemed like they really wanted to get it in, and the very last moment of go, no go, they decided they couldn't do it, which in my mind means they must not be that far away. That means that the underlying tech works. They said at least that they're trying to get rid of edge cases, which means that for the most part, the feature is good to go. It's just still got bugs, which, we're used to that, but it's still got bugs that are obviously blockers. I do hope though that when we do get it, this means we're good to go. And I wish it wasn't as disappointing as a delay, but that's how things are. It's not like they could have put it on the patch for the second quarter of this year, third quarter. But if it's a month off, if it's 2 months off and that update's in August, then I guess they'd put it on this one first. Either way.
So it's a bit disappointing that it missed the release, but we are really close. But so like the first thing is just like, it's big and it's hard to estimate and quite pin down all the unknowns and everything and make sure that like your dates are exact by the time the actual date comes up. So we're a little bit off on that part, but there's also just been a lot of things that have happened during that time. Some of the stuff towards the end that have really informed that decision making are the fact that there's still some feature work that needs to be finished out. There's
some iteration that we're still doing on certain aspects, or that we did on certain aspects of the design once we got things up and going. In particular, the freight elevator kiosk UI and the item bank UI. Once we played with them a bit, we realized we needed to update them and change them to make them a better experience. And then on top of that, in particular, the hangar instancing, ASOP, and transit kind of flow graph there about going from all these different stages of gameplay had some stability problems. And it's the kind of thing that I really felt strongly that we can't go live with that being not really stable, because if we do, and it ends up being a problem, the game essentially becomes unplayable for the players.
Yeah, that's messed
So
up.
it's not like, you know,
like
if
our package, our box delivery missions are already broken, and that sucks. But imagine if all of the things related to inventory was broken. Looting, putting on your armor, getting your ships, your vehicles, storing armor, storing loot, buying stuff, selling stuff. Like, that would suck if the underlying system there somehow had a catastrophic problem. That better not happen when it comes in.
if we went out with salvage, and maybe there's some issue with salvage, or if we're going out with mining, or, you know, the rocks sometimes crash your client, like that is really unfortunate.
That
Obviously,
affects a small subset of people.
Yes. This is the kind of thing where the game could literally just be unplayable.
You can no longer summon your spaceships. You can no longer load your spaceships. It's a pretty heavy thing.
So, like, in comparison, like, ever since 3.18, we've been a lot more cognizant of what kind of risk we want to take on whenever we're going into the release. So whenever we were coming up on the 3.23, we were really aware of how big this was, and also really aware of, like, the current state of 3.23 without all of that feature work. And because 3.23 was already needing some more time to be focused on to stabilize and improve performance, we didn't want to just rush this in and then take something we already spent a certain amount of time hardening on 3.23 and then just destabilize it all again, and it probably just, like, reset our whole release kind of pipeline there. But also then taking on all the new risk for the cargo work. But we are in a child stream of the release stream. So that means that, like, we're ready to go. Anytime we want to, we can just pull the trigger and release it. We're right there. So it's not like it's stuffed away and you know, some development stream that's, like, you know, still in a bunker somewhere. Like, we're really close. It's going through the already, you know, certain steps of the release phase. It's just we weren't ready. We didn't want to integrate it because of the risk and already the state of 3.23 itself. But on top of that, like, to be completely,
when he said harden to the PTU, I believe he was saying harden 3.23 after they got these freight elevator stuff in. Harden that feature so that it works better throughout the patch. I think that's what he was saying.
Honest, this feature has been around, like I said, for quite some time, and there's been a lot of things that have happened just kind of outside the feature that have also contributed to it. So, like, as people are probably aware, there's been some team restructuring, personnel changes, you know, changes to our, like, kind of vision and direction that have, you know, in particular, I think, impacted, like, the teams working on this feature set. So it's made it a challenge at times to, you know, stay focused on it and not be affected by all that, people changing, bringing people on board and getting them up to speed about, you know, the whole project and everything. So it's been a whole journey, but we're really close. It is disappointing to put in this much effort that we've put into it and then miss it, but I felt like it was the right call. So
I appreciate your candor on that, folks.
I appreciate the call. I really want this feature. This is going to be a great feature, great change to the game. But at the end of the day, like, stability is the most important part of this at this point. People are playing this like it's a real thing, and the more stable the game can be, the better that is. New features are awesome, but, like, how often do you hear people saying, why don't they fix all the bugs? This is them at least trying to proactively take care of the major bugs that might make the features worse. And we know more bugs will pop up, but I'm glad that they're going to make the call like that and make sure 3.23 comes out and we can enjoy the stuff that's actually in it.
in the chat right here are saying, oh, so they don't want another 318. They admit it. Yeah. I mean, I don't think I did.
Yeah, we don't either.
I would not have thought that would have been a surprise to anybody or a mystery to anybody. I am often quoted as saying, you know, we have the same conversations that our backers have. I'm going to talk to you, John. I'm going to talk to them. We have the same conversations you guys do. We just have them a few weeks earlier. We have the same concerns. We have the same excitements. We take the same blows to the head. 323 hit us as much as it hits you as in the heart and the head in the fields. We don't want that to happen again. Is this me sitting here saying that it's never going to happen again? No, I'm not going to sit here and say something will never happen. But everybody here is working very hard to make sure that it doesn't happen again. And decisions like this one are one of the things that have to be done in order to ensure that from time to time. So it is still 323. It is still 323X. Whether that's 323.1 or 323.2, it's too early to say.
Not one.
Whether that's
no way.
Before Invictus, at Invictus, slightly after Invictus, it's too early to say. But yeah, like Chad said, it's all there. It's all still in the branch. It's basically when everything else is stabilized and secure and in a place that we're happy and whatever, then it's like, okay, now let's introduce this.
That'd be crazy if it was 0.1, but we'll see.
And see how that affects things and fix those things. Because yeah, Chad made another great point. This is literally your ability to summon and access your spaceship. It's a fundamental change to the way everything moves in the persistent universe. So it is not a small feature, but 323 has a whole bunch of other features. We're currently 13, 14 episodes into this season. It's normally on 10 episodes. We got a bunch more coming. It's a huge, huge patch even without this. So we'll get all that stuff in, stabilize all that stuff, and then turn our attention back to this. Well, Chad's attention probably will never turn. All right. So with that, let's jump right into the questions here.
Tell us about the things, the stuff.
This show was originally scheduled for 2 weeks ago. So we put up a thread and collected questions. We didn't have the show 2 weeks ago because Jared fell down and knocked himself out.
True story. Actually.
Wait, really?
I knocked myself out. Got a concussion.
And people were like, they're trying not to give us information. This dude just went and pulled a Jared. I hope you're okay, my friend. I really do. That's not fun to knock yourself out. And it's also not fun to have a concussion. And I hope that Jared's recovery from that was okay. And he's doing okay. Don't do that again to yourself, man. We need Space Daddy.
Mostly back in normal now. Got a haircut. So we're going to jump into this.
I can't tell the difference.
You can't tell the difference between concussed Jared and non-concussed Jared? Neither could my mom. All right. So we collected a bunch of questions. We're going to just jump right in.
He started an hour early because... No, that's a mean joke.
Let's talk about the personal hangars for a while. We'll get into overall cargo gameplay and stuff. But we have a bunch of questions that are focused primarily on the hangars. So let's jump into those. One of the big questions folks had after they watched ISC was, how do we prevent unwanted people from getting into our personal hangar?
Shoot them.
I mean, obviously, there's some kind of a security around the elevator and
Shoot
stuff.
them.
We recorded for ISC, but it didn't make the cut at the time.
Shoot them.
But also, what stops people from just charging the outer doors?
Shooting them.
And getting in there. What can you tell us about access restrictions?
Yeah, so the first thing I'll say is with everything, this is like the first release of this. So what we come out with now isn't necessarily like our final vision or where we leave it. And I can tell you that we already are going to continue working on this after this release. So there's going to be more to be done all around. But for this release, the way that it's going to work is if somebody who is not in your party somehow ends up in your hangar, then what we'll do is we'll treat it kind of similar to the impounding behavior that we have for the landing areas, where they'll get a bit of a warning, but then soon thereafter, they're going to just get kicked out and teleported out into the station. If they're in a ship, the ship will get impounded, and that'll be that. It's in an armistice zone, so the players won't be able to like draw weapons or shoot or anything like this. But excuse me, but we do want to make sure that like players aren't just, you know, murdering each other in there. But we can do better. Like I said, we want to have improved security in the future and make it a more less gamey kind of experience to have heightened security in there.
That's literally what I was about to say. This is like the NPCs loading ships thing. Why doesn't he also mention that this should be changing to security in the future, just so we have that confidence of knowing that's still their plan? And that's what he's saying here. At some point, armistice zones will be gone, and you will be able to enforce it yourself, I think, is what he's saying. Let's just a little bit, just to confirm.
A more less gamey kind of experience to have heightened security in there. But it is just going to be using the impounding and teleporting behavior for this release.
Okay.
Does that include?
See,
so obviously there's some
love
time limit. There's some time period,
Murder!
A couple seconds, whatever. If I grab some, if I get in there really fast and I pick something up before I'm impounded, do I teleport out with my stolen booty?
You will, but I mean, it'll be considered stolen at that point.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah.
So you can steal stuff.
There's more to be done there, I think, to make that like a more well-founded experience. But like for now, yeah, you'll get it, but it will have been stolen.
Oh.
I think it'll probably prove challenging to do a lot there, like in practice. But I'm not going to be surprised when we go live. I'm sure there's going to be some people who are going to try to grief things, and we might have to react in particular. But it's just one of those things where we need to spend more time with it to make a more well-founded, like full solution there. So we're going with the kind of easy or quick but clean solution of just like, yeah, just teleport people out and just, you know, don't try to be too clever about it.
Ryukishin in chat says, challenge accepted, Chad. Like there's going to be an array of lightning fast thieves trying to get in and grab stuff before. It'll become a challenge. It'll become the
So if I
personal hangar thievery challenge.
Wait. If I jump in somebody's vehicle or ship, and then I get impounded, I get sent back, will that ship get impounded with me? That would be ridiculous. And then it's yours. It's in your hangar. You just spawn it if you want.
Watch. It'll happen. In the chat, they asked, okay, so that's how intruders. What about group members, party members? What's their access to your hangar like?
Yeah, so if they're in a party with you, if someone's in a party with you, they have access to your hangar, even if you're not there. So let's say like my home location is Area 18, and Jared, you're in a party with me. You can go to Area 18 and you'll have access to my hangar. You can go in when I'm not there. You can go in while I'm there. You can use the freight elevator kiosk while you're in there. You can use the item bank. We want to make multi-crew gameplay as seamless as possible. So this is something in particular that we were definitely really thinking about throughout the whole process. Effectively, the way that it'll work is when you go to the access elevator in the station and you call the elevator, you're not going to get a list of every hangar at the station. Like I can't just go to somebody else's hangar randomly. Rather, what has to happen is I need to be in a party with them. And then when I go in the hangar, I'll see my hangars in the elevator list and any party members' hangars in my list as well. This is also another way that we tamper down on some of the griefing. It doesn't get rid of it immediately. Like I'm totally aware that someone can just walk into the elevator. But the point is that you can't just, without someone there, use the elevator and go to somebody else's hangar like independently. However, you can do that if you're in a party with them. That's also a way to manage kind of the rights. So if like
so we definitely can't have these situations anymore where the elevator, you get into the elevator and then you close the door and then the elevator just goes to the other side of the room and opens for somebody else to get in it. And I'm assuming with the whole instancing of hangars and stuff, they're redoing that system so that doesn't happen, because that'd be a little awkward.
You're in a party with somebody and they end up misbehaving. All you need to do is actually just like kick them from your party, and very quickly they'll just be removed from the hangar and kicked out. So it's a way for the players to kind of control some of the access that they're giving to other players. But when they have given that, we do want to make sure that it feels like a very like kind of seamless experience.
Yeah, and again, we actually had a whole thing recorded on that and stuff like this, but we it just, for whatever reason, it didn't make the show, and we knew we were having the follow-up here, so I'm glad we got to cover it. For 323, the personal hangar, and I'm glad you mentioned that even when this goes out in 323X, this is still not the end-all and be-all of this work. Like anything else for Star Citizen or any MMO, the work continues to iterate and evolve beyond this. For 323, your personal hangar it's your home hangar. It's at your home base, whether it's Area 18 or Microtech or Lorville or whatnot. And the size that you get is based on the largest ship that you currently own at the time that you log in and pick it. The next question says, what happens if you buy a larger ship after that? What happens to your hangar if you end up buying a ship that's too big for the hangar that you've been assigned?
Yeah, great question. It's one of those things that like I should have gone into more detail on in the ISC. It's funny, even when my wife watched it, that was the very first question that she asked me after it was done. So like, I know everybody was like, that's, immediately, well, what if I get another ship or whatever? So yes, we've thought about that. For this release, again, this is just the first release. We're gonna improve on this aspect of it. For this release, the way that it will work is if you buy a new ship, whether that be outside the game or in-game with in-game currency, and then you go to request that ship, you can't do it if the hangar isn't large enough. So instead, what would happen is you would be given what we call a public hangar. And a public hangar is similar to a personal hangar, just the difference is that if you were to leave the location, anything that you left in that hangar will be cleaned up and thrown away. So
just thrown
you
away.
Can't treat it like your personal hangar. Like the personal hangar, you can decorate and leave all this stuff everywhere. You log out of the game, log into the game, it's all still there, etc. The public hangars aren't like that, although they're not really that different. And what I mean by that is one of the things I didn't have time to really go into in the ISC is, how does all this work when you're not at your home location and you're not using a personal hangar? Let's say my home location again is Area 18 and I go to Beijing Point and I land. Those are still persistent hangars. They're just not your personal hangars. And the distinction here is just that if I were to take my ship and land at Beijing Point and then I'm given a public hangar while I'm at Beijing Point, while I'm there, anything that I leave in there is going to stay in the hangar. So let's say I just drop a bunch of boxes on the ground and then go into the station to sell some commodities or whatever.
Hold on.
Or do anything else, me and my friend. Then I go back to the hangar. The stuff in that hangar is still there. If I'm going to log out of the game and log back into the game, I actually still have my stuff there.
Okay.
It's only when I purposefully leave the location that stuff is taken away. So
okay, so it's when you leave the location. See, that's like, it's like local persistence almost. Like if you're in the location, you'll still be able to use that as a storehouse. You'll still be able to send everything there and then, play with it, leave it there, go get something, go back to your ship, and it'll all still be there, it sounds like.
A public hangar.
And when you say taken away, what do you mean?
You lose them. They're forfeit. Yeah.
So don't leave your
it's
stuff
something
in a
that we
public
want to improve on in the future. What we would prefer to have is rented storage, and in fact I'll get to that in just a moment, so that if you leave, it's more like you kind of have to like buy it out of impounding, or pay like the fee for the storage costs. For now, it's just they're going to be discarded. You will get a warning when that happens, so that you know that you're going to lose that stuff if you were to leave it on the ground accidentally in the public hangar. But for now, you're just going to lose them. But the kind of what my point was with bringing all that up regarding your own ship is that it's going to be the same behavior as if you were to go to a different location in the game, but that is still a somewhat persistent experience anyways while you're there. It's just not, it's what we won't do, and where I think some people have, kind of imagineered is that like we would like grow your hangar magically larger and like rearrange the things. Like we're not going to do that. And instead, what we want to do in a subsequent release is to add a whole pipeline and feature set for upgrading your hangars, including like moving things around, and on top of that, renting the hangars at other locations in the game. Like it's not the intention that the hangars are only at
the initial home locations. It's just where we're starting now because we don't have the time to implement all of the feature work and backend that's needed for rentals and upgrades.
Yeah.
With including like fees and all over time and all this stuff. So what that means is just that you're going to have the one at the home location now, but in the future, absolutely, we want players to use this as a way of like kind of having a sense of progression in the game, so that when you're playing, you can accrue wealth. You can then use that wealth to expand your kind of area of influence and where you can, you know, have extra inventories, have extra storage locations, and kind of spread throughout.
This is like literally how we started the stream, was talking about this, right? Setting up a hangar in a place where you go often and using that as like your extra outpost stop off kind of thing. Thank you, Chad.
And I think this will become especially important once we bring more solar systems online. You're definitely going to want to have, I think, more hangars across the different solar systems in the game. So this is just step one. It's not the final, you know, stop in this progression. We know where we're going. It's just trying to find the way to carve up the feature to still hit an initial release. So this is one of those things that we kind of, you know, took a step back, simplified it for now, but we're going to do more.
Okay. No, good answer.
Good answer, Steve.
You mentioned that players will be able to go into your hangar and access your inventory, or access the freight elevators. Will they be able to access their own stuff inside your hangar?
Yes. So if someone is in a party with you and they end up in your hangar, they can use the freight elevator kiosk, and when they use it, they'll access their own inventory. And if they were to use an item bank in the hangar, they'll access their own inventory when using the item bank.
That is
something that we actually started
so that means specifically you not only can have a hangar that's dedicated to doing a certain thing. I'm thinking about this from the org perspective. You can also have an account that has all of the stuff for orgs, and that account will be able to go into any of the hangars that the org has and spawn things if need be, whether it's supplying an event, renting out stuff, or anything like that. That's pretty cool. That means that even if the player that you know isn't at the space station home location, I guess, that you're at, but they have a hangar there, if you're in their party, you can go into that hangar, leave them some goods, and then sign off. And those goods should be there for them to pick up whenever you want. That is like kind of a player trading system almost, if that is what he's saying, but it sounds like that's what he's saying. You can go into your friend's place, you can access your own inventory, and you should be able to leave stuff in their personal persistent hangar. I like that. That'd be really cool if you could make deliveries to people while they're not at the location.
Working on, and in fact working was having them also access your inventory. So like if we were in a party, you could come to my hangar and then have the choice in the UI about whether you want to take things using the freight elevator kiosk from your inventory or my inventory.
That's even better.
But we had some concerns about like security, given that party membership isn't maybe as strong of a guarantee because you'll end up in missions or doing things with people that are it's a little bit maybe too much power to give to somebody just because they're in a party with you to have them access your own inventory. So we still want to do that part. We just want to add more security and authorization functionality to be able to say, okay, for this person, they can access my inventory, they can't. So we want more as far as like permissions before introducing that part. But sort of they will absolutely be able to access their own inventory in your hangar.
That sounds like you've played with Sean Tracy.
Yes.
He will just jack all your stuff.
There's so many knock-on effects to this system coming in.
And smile the whole time.
Oh yeah, no, he's very happy about it. Very happy when he does it. How many home hangars can a player have, and can they change the location after they choose them?
Just realizing that also does a lot to not complicate this process from where we are now. Where we are now, if everybody's going in a ship to go somewhere and everybody's hangar or storage is in that place, you can just go into their ship and then access your local inventory and drop it all into their ship. They're only adding one extra step. or 2 extra steps. Use the hangar inventory and then bring your stuff onto the ship. If they weren't allowing people to access their inventories in these ships, then this would get really frustrating. That's actually, yeah, I didn't even think about that. This would almost not even work as a system if they didn't let us access inventories in our own ship, because you can't carry all that stuff through the space station. So it's, yeah, good thing that's a reality.
Just the one for now, and no, they can't change the home location for this release. So like once you get it, that's the one that you have. Again, in the future, we want to do more for upgrading and rental.
Yeah.
We will think about like moving. I'm not sure how I feel about that for the initial one. So there's still a bit of design thought about like every single corner case there about what we want to allow for players. But for now, for 323.x, you're not going to be able to move the persistent hangar location.
Yeah. So that answer was very candid and truthful. But I want to make sure that that's understood, because when people make this decision, I want to make sure that everybody knows to consider it. When you start, when this patch launches, you will get a decision to choose your new starting location for the duration of 323 until whatever comes next. When you choose Area 18 or Microtech or Hurston or whatnot, you are locking in your persistent hangar, your persistent personal hangar
choice
for the duration of that patch until additional functionality comes on. So don't lose that information and for the folks who are making the 7-minute cut down version, make sure that gets in there.
12-minute.
Okay.
Indeed, and just to kind of preempt another, I read everything. I know like every question you guys have thought about, like I already know it all. So like, and another thing that people have raised as concerns is, pirates. Like, what if I'm a pirate and I don't want to like set my home location as forever to be Area 18? I'm going to go to Grimhex. Am I just screwed? Do I not get a personal hangar?
Be right back, folks.
The answer is, again, like for 323, we just don't have the functionality to allow for those other locations to have them. But it's not that we don't want to allow that. Like we do want to. It's just not going to be in this particular release.
Are there plans to allow personal hangars that are not at the major landing zones? In the chat, folks are asking about Grimhex, but possibly either at stations or smaller ground locations or whatnot. What can you tell us?
Yeah, essentially anywhere you can spawn a ship that has anywhere that has hangars will have personal hangars. Like that's the long and short of it. So the rest stops, Grimhex, we want it to be a prevalent thing to give the player options. Of course, we'll come up with our own decision making as far as the economics of it. Perhaps we will consider maybe charging more or less, or having different dynamics for the rental aspect of it, or whatever. But we want it to be a very open thing. We don't want it to be constrained. Like again, another thing that I've seen people comment on is that we're trying to push people to play on the landing areas on the planets. That we're putting a lot of focus to keep people on the planets. That's not actually our goal here. It's just what we needed to do to get this done for this particular release. We want people to be able to go out in the universe and claim some part of it and feel like that's their home. And if you have a preference that's not, on a planet, we want to empower that. We want you to feel like you can go somewhere else and call that place your home, Grimhex, Pyro, whatever.
Yeah.
And have multiple even, so that you can bounce around. So if you're spending a period of time in one region of the game, especially like once we get multiple solar systems, we don't want you to feel like overly punished because you just have this one location and you'll never go back to it because it's so far away. We want it to feel like basically we're balancing here, and this is, I think, also kind of gets to the core of Star Citizen as a game, which is we're threading this needle of a simulation and a enjoyable game experience. So we want to make physicality and inventory tie into that and make the game feel tangible, give you important decisions to consider, have risks involved with certain decisions, so that you have to be thoughtful and that feeds into all aspects of the game. So like, for example, let's say
I have a bunch of inventory as far as like the guns and loadouts that I have access to at my home location. If I'm gonna go take a bunch of missions, it's on the other side of the solar system, we want you to actually think about that. And then when you're over there, you don't have as many options as you had before. You can't just quickly change out your loadout. You can't necessarily quickly stock up unless you thought about it ahead of time. Right. So we want you to be thinking about it. At the same time, we don't want it to
That's
just
the
be
whole philosophy of the game. All these things that kind of feel like they're frustrating is because they're trying to frustrate you if you don't necessarily do the right thing ahead of time. I like that. Unfortunately, that leads to a lot of frustration for me because I get that wrong a lot. I'm not used to games like this. So I mess that up a lot. But I like the way that it makes me want to think about the game. Because a lot of times I just mindlessly play games, and I've got games that I have for that. But I would like to think and strategize and feel rewarded for the decisions I make in a game. And I've always appreciated that about this and their goal for this.
super punishing so that you play for like 30 minutes, die once, and then just feel like, okay, I'm just done here. I don't want to play this game anymore. We're trying to find that balance to make it an interesting, fun experience, have those simulation aspects where it feels like a real space game. It's not magical. You can't just summon a thing out of thin air. There are important reasons why you need to think about what you take with you, but it's not overly punishing, which is like a different track than other games. Like as an example, like a game like Diablo 4 or like many other classic big games like that game, you just have like this you have this invisible inventory. I mean, you access it from a chest, but the point is you can access it literally anywhere in the world, and it's all the same inventory, and that makes sense for that game, right? They have different problems, they have different play patterns that they want to encourage, but for the game that we want it to be a little bit more thoughtful, a little bit more tactile, but not as super punishing as maybe like a Escape from Tarkov or something.
Yeah. Choice matters. You obviously want the choices to matter. You want people to benefit from good choices, and you want people to struggle with poor choices. And as always, you bring it.
You got to regret that double dog every once in a while.
Back to the point of fun, and that area is always the hardest part to find. I see. Who's the person that there's somebody that the Twitter algorithm's been putting in my feed, even though I try not to see him all the time. I can't remember his name. The Game of Thrones guy. But I'm talking about the game not being a sim or whatnot. And so certain aspects, yes, we want to push them to be more simulation-like, and as close as we can get within the confines of giant shared server MMO technology, and then bring it back to the point of fun and stuff like that. So there's always that balance there. Greasy Khaleesi. Took me a while. I remembered your name. Get out of my feed.
Yeah, I keep seeing them on Twitter.
He just straight up says that. Did Chad chime in? Oh my gosh. These people are no holding back anymore.
I remembered your name. Get out of my feed.
Yeah, I keep seeing them on Twitter.
Lobotomy.
I thought he was about to say tomato. See me, Jared. At least I know he's not on his timeline.
Asks, how are you going to make finding a party member's hangar not a scrolling contest?
He just specifically named somebody in the Star Citizen community that he's actively trying not to see on Twitter, which I think is very straightforward.
Elevator if you're in a large party.
Yeah, so whenever you go to the elevator access in the station, when you call the elevator, that carriage is your carriage. So when it shows up, it only has the stops in it that you have access to. So by default, if you start in your home location, like area 18 in this example I keep using, then I would go in, and if, let's say, I had a account that the largest ship on it was a Drake Cutlass, then I would go in and I would have a medium hangar that I would see in that list. It would say,
whatever Cthulhu, Dark Cthulhu Lords medium hangar, because that would be like my name or something, something edgy like that. So the point is that like I'll see my hangar in there, but nobody else's. When I'm in a party with somebody and then I call that hangar, I'll see their hangars at that location there as well as mine. But unless you have like a lot of party members, that list is not going to be long. And in fact, it's going to be much smaller usually. Usually it's going to be like 1 or maybe 2, maybe 3, you know. I am totally aware that there are people that go out into the server and they just make, you know, this giant single server party. That person, if you're in that party, yes, you'll go in and you'll see like 100 in that list.
Oh my God.
I don't know. I guess in that case, you're going to have a little bit of a rough time, but this is obviously a pretty big corner
Just
case.
please organize them in some meaningful way, like mine first and then alphabetic, please.
So yeah, that's the main mechanism.
That will get resolved as the feature continues to develop, and people can choose more locations. Right now in 3.23, they're limited to the 4 primary locations, but as people begin to be able to choose different locations for their primary personal hangar and whatnot, that problem will get diminished. So yeah,
and actually, I'll use this as an opportunity to kind of re-impress a point, which is that it's only the ones at that location that you have access to. So if I were to go to Bajan Point, and I have a party member whose personal home hangar is at Area 18.
It's not going to show up.
Yeah, it won't show up.
Yeah.
So like it's tied to the location. So for that reason, it does get parsed out. And if you know, as you were to say, in that 100-person server, unless all 100 people pick the same home location, it's still going to be spread out amongst all the locations that they all picked independently.
No, Bajan Point is not a new station. He's saying Bajini.
Oh, sorry, Bajini. Yes.
Beijing Point.
This comes up a lot. Half the developers here don't know the term Hurston, folks. They call it Stanton.
I know the term Hurston.
but no. But I'm saying there's internal name.
Jared's like, these people are f***ing idiots. They don't know what they're making. They got more important things to focus on.
Folks are knowing. Like the number of times I'm going to be on the show, like, okay, which one's Stanton 2? Stop saying Stanton 2.
Yeah, so we know it as ARC LEO. So that's
ARC LEO.
That's what we call it in game. So
Beijing Point.
You can give Chad crap for all kinds of stuff, not for not remembering the specific name of front-facing name of something that doesn't exist on the internal stuff. I was just trying to think of something else I wanted to give you shit about. How many people so these parties can be pretty big. Is there a occupancy limit inside the personal persistent hangars?
No, I mean it's not like it's not like we go to a club and it's like, oh no, met occupancy, you're gonna have to wait to get in. There's nothing like that. It's you know, if it fits, it sits. If you can cram 100 people in there.
No, I know the owner
too. Like you can do it, but that's no different than right now in the game. If you wanted to go into a small hangar and try to get 100 people in the server to walk into the hangar, you could try it, right? There's nothing that's going to stop you, and that's the same thing here.
Yeah. I'm imagining what an entire hangar entire server crammed into one hangar, and the videos that are going to come from that. Is that a knock at the door?
Hello?
Somebody knocking at the door?
They're coming to take you away.
Is there somebody at the door? Just heard a knock at the door.
Who is it?
It's not a gimmick, right? No,
I heard a knock.
Having me on?
A new alert?
It was just a big knock at the door. All right. So let's see.
Something concussed Jared.
Yeah, maybe. Did I say I swear? Is that somebody coming after me? All right. So we've already... okay.
Talk about cargo.
More people theory crafting here.
Cargo
if a player is inside their ship, inside their personal hangar, and they log out from the ship bed, where do they wake up when they come back in?
Probably in the...
Has the ship been stored?
Oh.
Yeah,
so, where would they?
In this case, it won't be back in the hangar for this particular release. Again, this is just one of those things where there's a lot of complexity in how the...
I do not know if a character reset will reset the hangar. It's a good question.
Shards and server meshing and all of this. So for now, no, it won't be that like if you were to log out in your ship in your hangar and then log back in, you're going to end up in your ship in your hangar. But we do want to revisit logging in and out with the hangars in particular. So that's something that we're going to be absolutely.
Was this somebody's way of sneaking in a bed logging question to Chad? Oh my gosh. I bet this was.
Looking at more specifically, and if anyone's kept up with my
Yeah.
hot take commentary
Here it is.
on Spectrum, they'll know there's already some discussions like more broadly about login flow, and this definitely ties into it about like just generally how logging in is supposed to work in the game. And hangars are an important aspect of that, but we're thinking
how about beds?
Broader than that. We're thinking
beds,
the whole game. So we also need to be thinking about things like habs, like bases,
beds,
all of it. So this is definitely an aspect.
What are you changing, Chad? What are you changing?
But in this particular release, it's not going to work out like that. You'll end up just logging back in the station.
Yeah, Thelius, thank you for the sub. 25 months.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm
Appreciate
pretty sure if you try to bed log in a ship in the hangar, it doesn't let you.
Portable camping bed, right? Just let us transport beds.
Yeah, as these things become more of a home for players, as they begin to decorate it, and it's like this, I can see the desire for that behavior to change, which is probably where that question comes from.
Absolutely.
Can we equip weapons in our personal hangars despite the armistice?
They're just going to be quiet about that then.
No. I'm laughing a bit because there was actually something of a bug that we had recently with people being able to draw weapons in the green zones, but no, that's not going to be possible. You will be able to use the tractor beams in your in the hangars to be able to move things around, but you're not going to be able to pull out a gun. It's not going to be like a stand your ground law zone type situation. For now, that's something that we revisit. I could see maybe a different location in the game, like Grim Hacks, maybe a more pirate focused place, having a little bit more stand your ground type laws regarding like what you can do. But for the moment, it's just going to be you can use your tractor beam and that's it.
Okay, so you'll still be able to.
Like one thing we don't want, just to maybe unpack that a little bit, is because people are going to still be able to get in, through these slightly corner case ways, like someone can just fly in or someone can just walk into the carriage. If they can draw their gun, then while we can punish them for that, they could just walk up, shoot you in the head, kill you while you're just hanging out there moving cargo. And then yes, they're going to get punished, but like for someone that's like griefing, they got what they wanted. Right? It doesn't matter if they ended up dying or even going to prison for a period of time. They kind of got what they wanted out of that situation. So we're just not going to have that here for now. We'll revisit it.
I think it's important to note that when he says griefing there, I'm pretty sure he's saying somebody who got into your hangar for nothing other than to just kill you, which in my opinion, either they're a hired assassin or... griefing, but I mean that could be somebody's mission is to kill you in your hangar, but I do think that they're considering that kind of a safe zone. So in that case, there shouldn't be a objective to kill somebody, to rather to steal their stuff.
Improved security mechanisms and more opportunity to consider all the design aspects of it as well.
Gotcha. So when you use the item bank and you call up a rocket launcher, the rocket launcher comes up in a crate.
No, I mean you can access them, you just can't like raise them and shoot somebody with it, right? So you can, it's just as if you're in the station. Like you can have the gun on your back, you can get the gun out, you can use the tractor beam, you can hold it,
you can load the guns onto the gun racks in the ship and stuff.
Yeah, so like all of that's fine. You just can't literally raise the gun and point it at somebody and pull the trigger. That's the thing that you can't do.
Okay. Last of our personal questions personal hangar questions before we get to the more cargo related stuff.
Yes.
What does all this mean for our OG hangar flare items? Can we use them to decorate our personal hangars? How can we decorate our personal hangars?
So first off, shout out to people who remember the old OG hangar flare. I remember way back in the day, and we had fish tanks and the jukeboxes and all of that. And
In fact, my team was the team that worked on a lot of that stuff way back in the day, and unfortunately saw it kind of rot over time to the point that we ended up removing it. It was implemented in a way that was very like divergent from where the rest of the game was going as a more persistent game.
Yeah, because you guys forgot what was important.
So
aquariums.
It has a special place in my heart. Like, a lot of that stuff. Unfortunately, this
seriously, they're over here dealing with like cargo and salvage and freaking the flight model, when you guys should be spending time on what's important and put $50 million towards gameplay. Where's the aquarium, Chad?
We're not going to have like revisited that. The prop team would need to go back and rebuild some aspects of it because they're quite old at this point. There's a lot of changes in the way some of the features work, especially things regarding interactions and usability and all of that. So there's some work there on the props and interactables team to be done, and they've been really focused on the mainline feature work for this release. So it's not something that we've had the time to get to. But it's not something that we've forgotten about. Like, definitely we remember those things fondly. But it is kind of easier actually sometimes to make new things rather than like revisit a lot of old things. So one of the things that we are adding in this release is furniture. So you are going to be able to buy furniture in game at certain locations and then be able to decorate your hangar with that. Couches and stuff like this. So you'll still have some things.
Star Citizen is getting furniture? How many thumbnails are going to have that on there? I would. Star Citizen upgrading from bedsheet deformation to full-on couch pits. Sit in the couch long enough to lose your change. Wonder what kind of stuff. They'll definitely give us a couch first, right?
That are more social, that are more interesting, make it feel a little bit more homey to decorate your hangar with, and otherwise I look forward to all the fun shenanigans that people get up to with where they end up putting these things. But it's not like, we definitely want to encourage that kind of thing. We want players to feel like this is their home. We want players to have some fun things to be able to decorate and place throughout the world. But for now, it's going to be the newer furniture. Not the OG hangar.
Yeah, it's as a good rule of thumb for managing your expectations. If you can pull it out and hold it in your hands today, then yes. If you can't physically manipulate it in the game in 3.22.2 or whatever patch we're on, then no, that's the stuff that's still waiting to be brought in. That's basically the process.
So you can actually have a table in your hangar with all of your trophies from different game events. Because there are a lot of things we've collected throughout the years from taking part in certain things or collecting things, or even if you go out and find stuff in the game, like artifacts, you can actually have a collection of stuff that you could show off to people when they come to your hangar. That's pretty cool. It's like the beginning of being able to have some pride in what you've done in the game.
They got to go back. This stuff was built, like I said, so a lot of it was built by our old friends at Behavior. Shout out to Dave Richard and Christine March way back when. It was built specifically for the hangar module. It wasn't built to be handled, with hands and IK and stuff like that. I almost used up my second swear. So that stuff's all got to be converted. It was also built in a different way, different metrics, different processes back then. So that process of bringing that stuff over. I've seen the zoo. They've built what we call it a zoo. It's this giant level that's just all of the hangar flare, and they've been slowly, when an artist finishes on a task and he or she has like 2 days before the next task is ready for them to begin, they'll go over to that zoo and start working on converting another one. So it is a thing that's in process. It's very, very slow, and it's one of those things that because that was Star Citizen when I started on. So like Chad, we have a big affinity for a lot of that old stuff. I want my stupid jukebox. I want my calendar. I want my calendar that tells me what day of the week it is in 2014, and stuff like that to work. And I hope they don't fix that. I hope it still just tells you what day it is in 2014.
Yeah, that's a good rule of thumb, I think, for the players. Like, if you can manipulate it in game now, it's something that you'll be able to gain access to and manipulate it. Then there are going to be some things that you won't be able to move without putting them into an inventory container box that I mentioned, I think, on the ISC. So there are going to be some things that you can't just spawn into the world. Mainly because just the art, honestly, and like the kind of gameplay setup of the thing wouldn't allow it. There's just some things right now that really weren't meant to be independently spawned as opposed to like attached to something.
Like what, Pico?
But there's if you can, you know, play with it in the game now,
yes,
and manipulate it, then you'll have access.
I've been chasing Steve. I've been torturing Steve Bender to take that old towel, the old hitchhiker's-esque towel from the old thing, and make a melee weapon out of it. He ignores me and walks the other direction. It happens more and more the longer I'm here, quite honestly. All right, so let's jump into some more cargo-specific gameplay. Chad, are you okay if we go a little bit over the past?
Happy to.
There? Okay.
Yeah, like what's gonna happen actually is like once I'm done with here, I'm gonna get ready and I'm gonna hop on a plane and then I'm going to a Bar Citizen in Chicago. So
right,
I'm good.
Okay, so we'll take some we'll do some extra time.
It's a hefty trip.
We'll put some extra bonus time on this one because there are a lot of questions. This is a big topic for folks.
Hey, the devs do a good job of going out and meeting with the community. I always appreciate
Manual
that.
or auto loading work at outposts, scrapyards, and other non-hangar specific locations.
Great question. The answer is it won't. So if there's not a hangar, you won't have auto loading as an option. That is a feature, not a bug. Like the point is that like a small outpost is not the kind of place where you're going to be doing large trades. We're going to be, this is something I'm not sure I got quite into as much detail on the ISC, but one of the big changes that we're making about how you buy cargo is changing it from being a raw resource allocation. So you won't just be picking like 3 SEU and then have the system like automatically figure out the configuration of cargo that you would need to put that into your ship. Rather, the places in the game are going to have certain stock, and that stock will include the box size. So the outposts, the smaller locations in the game are going to only trade in smaller volumes and smaller box sizes. So like 1 SEU, 2 SEU. And the idea is that like those places, you're going to just manually load it yourself. And you wouldn't show up with a C2 and fill it with like 700 SEU of 1 SEU boxes and then have it automatically pack it for you. That's not the point of that location in the game. It's not the route that we want that to satisfy. It's not what we want to do is differentiate the game. We want the locations in the game to serve different roles. We want there to be a reason to go to different places in the game, and we want there to be a reason to use different ships in the game. If you're a player that owns multiple ships, you will be now rewarded for, you know, good decision making as far as like your trade route considerations and your location considerations and your ship choices. And on top of that, if you party with people, you're going to benefit from the, let's say, the choices that you have as a group. And if you're on a larger ship, you're going to benefit from them being able to help you. So for these smaller locations, this is
where this picture comes from. This is the same idea, and they've been laying this out slowly but surely. I mean, it's something that we've known has been a plan with the game to differentiate locations and make sure you have different types of routes and ships going between them. But this is something they released last year that I think really solidified their ideas for cargo hauling before all this discussion really started in earnest over the last 6 months. And it shows that they plan on having, you know, large ships going between these large shipping areas, but then much smaller ships that are dealing with maybe just like 20 to 30 to maybe even 80 for the bigger locations like distribution centers on the moons. And, you know, that all kinds of considerations you can take, from ships that have protected areas to ships that have external storage to ships that have VTOL thrusters and are better for planetary landings. All kinds of stuff they want you to consider when you're taking these missions, so that it's not just like if you're a cargo hauler, you're a cargo hauler. If you haul something specific, or you haul to a specific location or place or system, that's something that should differentiate you from other people playing the game. I think that's pretty key to Star Citizen actually being interesting and diverse.
We don't want there to be like a giant hangar there that like sucks your ship into it and then just magically puts all of this huge amount of cargo volume that's like, I guess, just hidden underground or something. That's not really the point of those locations. On the flip side, a bigger trade route location like the LEOs, which are a hub for feeding the landing areas, those are meant to be big routes. So like they are going to support automatic loading. we want there to be big ships that go there and get these big amount of loads and haul them around. But for those, we would like them to deal in the kinds of box sizes that make sense for high volumes. So like the 24, the 32 SEU boxes. Think of it like this: like you wouldn't show up to. I'm from Oklahoma, so I'm gonna drop a reference. I don't know if anybody knows what a Love's is, but it's like a small truck stop, right?
Yes.
So you wouldn't show up to that with like a huge truck. I mean, you would with a truck, but you wouldn't then like take, 10,000 boxes of Twinkies and then load up your truck and then go to another, Love's somewhere in the world. That's not how trade routes work, right?
Yeah.
Instead, you have smaller shipments that will, feed smaller routes. But then for bigger trade routes, we have like these huge ships that carry huge loads of freight across the Panama Canal, all this stuff, and they have really particular routes that they go to with these much larger shipping containers. So that's the idea here, is that like there are going to be places that just deal in higher volume, there are going to be places that deal in smaller volume, and there are going to be some places in between. The locations will have the facilities there that make sense for them. However, that means that like I totally understand there might be someone in the game that just never wants to pick up a box, right? They just never want to do that. And like, yes, that means that sometimes whenever you're hauling cargo at these smaller locations in the game, like the outposts that don't have automatic loading, you're going to have to take the box out of your ship and put it onto the freight elevator. But that is a pretty short loop, because the way that it's going to work at the outpost is that the freight elevator is literally attached to the landing pad. So it's a matter of a few feet away. It's not like you have to go through this huge experience. You just land, you put the thing on the freight elevator, you interact with it. It'll take you not very much time. Again, for the loads that you're dealing with, we're not going to have you move 500 SEU at an outpost, one box at a time. These are going to be small loads. Whereas on the flip side, if you want to move 700 SEU manually from a C2 at, whatever, Area 18 or some other location of the game, and you have a crew of people, you can do that, and you'll potentially be rewarded by having a more favorable profit margin.
Freaking, yeah, see, that's where this all comes to. They need to figure out how to make sure these missions pay a lot, but also, like, they have to make these missions pay a lot, but they have to make them take time so that somebody can't do it on their own and make as much as two people would if they were doing it at the same time, so it has to take a while. There also has to be factored in the possibility of dangers for people who want to play turret gunners or escorts. There's engineering that might have to take place. Like, the balance of these payouts is going to be so crucial to this working, at least working with players. I'm sure NPCs can pick up the slack, but we want players, right?
Area 18 or some other location of the game, and you have a crew of people, you can do that, and you'll potentially be rewarded by having a more favorable profit margin. But obviously, you're going to have thought about that ahead of time. If you chose a bad configuration of boxes, that might take longer. Whereas like if you bought your cargo at places that dealt in larger box sizes, you're going to give yourself an easier time. So we're basically giving the players more choices.
Yes.
But also parsing it out to where it makes sense about like why you would choose certain routes and what you're trying to get out of it.
Letting us make mistakes like that is going to lead to a lot of people saying, wow, this game kind of sucks. Why did it let me do this? This is annoying and bad gameplay. And it's up to that person to find out what the gameplay, how like it. This kind of information is super key, but we're learning this because we're watching the development. It's always a big question in my head of how do they communicate this to players so they know this is the point of the game and get them more involved in thinking of the game that way. Do you just put a tip up on the screen for them when they land at a new location? Do you have an NPC tell them when they go to buy stuff? Do you like put this in the journal or in the FAQ or in the new player's guide?
You said Loves, and there was this one we used to go to of association with Hostess chocolate pudding filled pies. labs. And I was thinking, there's probably a Buc-ee's out there that's big enough that would break the analogy.
A Buc-ee's, yeah.
There's probably one Buc-ee's out there that's big enough to break the analogy. For auto loading, now obviously the time for an auto load is something we can adjust, and it's something we absolutely certainly will adjust. It's whatever it is in 3.23 will not be what it is in subsequent patches.
And in fact, I will point something out, which is a lot of people in the ISC, of course, dissected the video to death. And so one of the things that they did is they would pause the video when the different UIs were on the screen, and like really, delve into
I made
the
sure
pricing.
not to look into that because that did not look finished. The stuff they were showing us still to look a little scuffed.
The times there, I will just say all of that was dev data. Like, don't take that seriously, because that's just the data that us as like developers working on the game are testing with. That is not tuned data that the economy team has finished.
Yeah.
So I don't want people to have certain expectations about timing or pricing, and then get to the game and realize it's different, and then be disappointed or surprised.
Yes.
That just don't take those numbers seriously, I guess is what I...
Two things I always want to remind folks of. Sorry for the detour. Obviously, there's the alpha live environment where things will change. Then there's PTU before that. Then there's Evocati before that. And then there's where my guys, Will, Dave, Alex, and Toby are working in the absolute shit. I'm going to say it. It's they're saints. They do work that I could not curse. I don't have the patience.
No more curses, Jared.
That information is all temporary. It's all just don't believe anything you ever see in a UI screen on ISC. It's way too early in the process. It's learn the lessons. Don't give yourself the ulcer. Just remember it's work in progress. That's why we stick it on there. And then also
kind of to go a little bit further with that, one of the things that we want to be like, kind of just like a philosophy, I'll put it like this, a philosophy that we have here is we want to encourage people to engage with the manual loading. So you should expect that the pricing and the loading times are going to be more favorable for manual loading. If you want to do automatic loading, that's totally cool. We want that to be a viable path. It's not going to be unprofitable, but it's not going to be as profitable or even necessarily as time efficient.
It also depends on who you've got with you. We're going to have a certification in GII in our org that specifically recognizes those who are really freaking good at moving and packing stuff. We already have it. It's called the logistician. And there's going to be a point in this game where you're going to pay good money for people who can get stuff spawned and loaded into a ship quickly. Because if you can do with one person what 3 people can do, that's a lot less money you got to pay and a lot more profit you're going to make. And like that is a tangible, better skill you can get, not because you did a lot of time loading boxes, not because you put a lot of points into your skill tree in that area, literally just because you think about boxes. You store them a lot. You understand how they fit together. And that's the freaking best part about this game. I'm not good at loading boxes, but I'm super pumped to see how people specialize in this and become valuable to their orgs, or even valuable to random players when they can start putting out little beacons and stuff to let folks know, hey, I'm up for service. I can help you. Cargo hauling is going to be sick if they can pull this off.
As manual loading. So we want it to be an important trade-off for players to make that decision.
Guys, I've heard of Tetris. That's the game where you jump across the highway with the frog, right? I know what you guys are talking about. Come on, I'm not that young.
In addition to that, we want the pricing and the load time to be a little bit more intelligent. Like, it will take volume into account for sure. So like more cargo is going to take longer and cost more. But the other thing is we want to encourage people to be making smart decisions. Like, you shouldn't show up to a place and think you can buy 700 1 SEU boxes
and the cost and time to load that is going to be the same as if you got whatever, the same amount, but in 32 SU boxes. It's much more efficient to move a larger box than a lot of smaller ones. So for that reason, the pricing and timing is going to be considerate of the number of boxes, not just the volume of the SCU. So there's a little bit of nuance there, but I want to be transparent about like the thought process going in there and like why it is the way that it is and what we're trying to encourage.
I like it.
Let's see.
Rep.
Is the mass of cargo still planned to affect ship performance?
Hey, we're getting all the good questions.
It won't for this release, but it's something that absolutely we've been talking about. Part of the problem is it's more like we would have done it, in fact, even this release, but there's some interesting, I'll put it like considerations for the physics aspect of it. Right now in the game, if it wouldn't be too difficult to make the cargo boxes that are attached to the actual cargo grids impact the mass of the ship. But the problem is that if you were to detach the cargo and just lay it in the ship, it won't, because anything that's inside the zone of the vehicle doesn't contribute to the mass of the vehicle at the moment.
Easy.
But that's true of anything. Like you could drop a gun, you could, dead bodies. It doesn't matter. Anything you just chuck into the ship loose is not necessarily contributing to the mass either. So that's like kind of a bigger question about how we deal with mass inside ships. And it also feeds into other things about forces and, inheriting forces and pushing things around, which we also want to use to encourage people to use cargo grids as an advantage over just dropping stuff in your ship. So we're not there yet. We've absolutely been talking about it actively. It's something that we are planning on adding, because we want, again, that to add some interesting decision making as far as not just the ship, but also if you load up a ship full of cargo, we want it to fly slower. You're going to be a little bit more endangered. So if you're a big hauler, you're not going to be as agile while you're moving your cargo, and that might encourage you to want to party with other people who can defend you. And then also on top of that, it can help you make considerations during the loading process. You may want to spread the cargo around in your ship, which will take longer, but it'll make it maybe fly better. So to give you some interesting decision making during the loading itself.
Okay, but
not for this release.
Are we going to be able to see like our center of gravity and stuff? How deep is that going to get? How much can I tell how the mass changes my performance, or do I just have to kind of experiment?
Speaking of cargo grids, when we did our two-part design brief cargo career November last year, I think, you mentioned that eventually we'll be able to attach almost anything to a cargo grid. How's progress on that going?
It's coming, but it's not as far along as I was hoping. So I think this release, there are going to be some probably notable things that are missing. I don't want to say just yet exactly what, but certainly vehicles are not going to be able to be attached to cargo grids this release that one I will speak confidently on. And that's just more of considerations as far as if the entities themselves are really ready to be attached to things dynamically like that for physical reasons, or if they're ready to be just spawned in the world independently like that. So for example, ship items, a lot of them are not really designed to just be sat there in the world. They have, like, if you look at them, some of the geometry on them isn't even like complete. So it's that kind of stuff where we're not quite there yet. And there might be some other gameplay aspects with more testing that we find that whenever they're attached, they cause problems that need to be sorted out. And we might have to pull back on what ends up being literally attachable to the cargo grid. That doesn't mean that they may not be able to be called up on the freight elevator, because we can still place things loose on the freight elevator, but not literally attached to the grid in those situations if we were to need to. But as far as like attaching them to the cargo grid, for example, on the ship, and then flying around with them like on the exterior of the hull C, like in the ISC that we showed, we still have that ambition. It will be probably, I think, a progress, kind of work over time as far as like expanding everything that will be attached. It's still the governing principle, which is if it's in game, I want it to attach to a cargo grid reasonably.
Okay. So not a thing, probably
but not corpses. I know I made that joke actually. Yeah, like that I would say is an unreasonable thing, even though I mentioned it as an example. You won't be able to attach a corpse to a cargo grid, sorry. I'm sorry, Jared.
That transition.
Will you be able to attach a spacesuit to the cargo grid?
Whoever's on camera control, switch that perfectly.
So not a thing, probably
but not corpses. I know I made that joke actually. Yeah, like that I would say is an unreasonable thing, even though I mentioned it as an example. You won't be able to attach a corpse to a cargo grid, sorry.
Just dead silence. Oh man, that was funny.
I'm sorry, Jared.
Will you be able to attach a spacesuit to the cargo grid?
Yes, but that's because the space suit will be a box, right? So those things have already had those considerations made for them so that you can drop it on the ground and it ends up being a box. That should be able to be attached to the cargo grid fine. What you won't see is the loose, like, spacesuit that's kind of like as if it were on a person on the ground with like soft body physics or something like that. Okay. That we don't support. So again, it doesn't work like that in game now, so you wouldn't attach it to the cargo grid like that. The way that you do see those things is they're in the boxes, and the boxes you will be able to attach.
So you're saying anything that I can hold or wear is not going to attach to the cargo grid?
Yeah, like if you can physically manipulate it now, then that's something that you can reasonably expect. The vehicles, I think, are
expect not to attach or to attach?
To attach, yeah.
Because what if I just hold on to the thing and then I attach the thing to the cargo grid?
You have to use the tractor beam right now.
Okay. I think you should reconsider the corpses thing.
I'll keep it in mind, but I have questions. When you think about it, everything is cargo.
That's my
including
point.
coffins.
That's my point. It just seems like you're gonna go all the way there and then just stop before we become reavers. I want to see a giant reaver hull E. Just a giant floating ship of the dead.
Okay.
You switch to his face. I can't. Just stand on my face.
The cameraman didn't do it that time.
Okay. He's stuck. I broke Chad. Okay. Here's a question. Is there? We're in overtime, folks. So it's just don't think we're going to get anything good. Is there any future at all whatsoever for cargo decks beyond just buying tractor beams and empty containers?
Great question. I think cargo decks are an interesting thing in the game that were, I would say, designed at a time that we didn't really fully understand the full scope of the game that we were going to have, and how exactly
cargo decks are probably one of the more embarrassing things that have come out for this game. Definitely the most embarrassing location addition. Yeah. I was gonna say the Grim Hex rework, but yeah, the cargo decks are just like, why did that happen?
Loop as a whole to like come together. I do think they still serve an important role at the moment, but there is work there to figure out like what is the best thing for them overall. So I don't want to give a definitive answer on anything like that. I will just say that like we're totally aware that they're kind of in an awkward place maybe, at the moment as far as like what role they're serving and what we intend for them in the future. But we do want them to be more integrated.
No. Cargo decks are about 15 pounds of useless stuffed in a 5-pound sack, Chad. I can't see his face if you don't switch back to him.
He just quiet laughs too. Chad doesn't make any noise.
They could use a pass.
He's just like. Like that quiet laugh. Maybe he's muted actually. Think of like that quiet laugh where you're just like like are you okay? Are you gonna be all right? Hey, don't call my trams unnecessary filler. I'm a tram boy. Start insulting my trams.
What happens if we bring contraband or stolen goods back to our personal? Oh, we're back to personal hangars. So what happens if we bring contraband or stolen goods back to our personal hangars? Are we unable to store them? Do they flag the popo? What happens?
So for the moment, mostly it's going to work like the way that it does in game now, with the caveat that hauling missions in particular are going to be different. So if you just stole somebody else's cargo box and store it in your inventory, you're not necessarily going to get arrested. You won't be able to sell it somewhere, so you're going to be like in Area 18, for example. But you're not necessarily going to get arrested for that or fined or anything for just having it on your person. However, for the hauling missions, we want to make sure that players are incentivized, I'll say, to actually deliver the goods rather than just short circuit it. So if you were to, let's say, take a mission from Crusader and you get this big hull sea worth of cargo that you're intended to deliver, if you're going to take that to a location that's not the delivery destination, the system will know, and it actually will flag it and say like, okay, this is like a high risk thing, you shouldn't have it, and you'll be notified. If you won't be able to sell those at a normal location, or sorry, let me re-say that. If you are trying to sell it, it's going to be flagged, and actually you'll get fined for it. Even if you were to take it to like Grimhex, let's say, for example, a place that would normally take like a no questions asked type terminal, and you were to sell it there, you can, but the price is going to be dramatically reduced because it's going to be considered higher risk. So the idea is that we don't want players to basically take these missions and just go to like the nearest like Grimhex or something like that and just offload it and not actually take it to the place that it's intended to go. On the flip side, we don't want to overly punish pirates who don't necessarily always know the ships that they're trying to steal from. And while I know, there's a lot of discussions about like how much we favor or don't favor piracy as like a loop in the game, we don't want to completely ice them out so that if they end up accidentally coming across, let's say, some boxes that were being
just
delivered
stumbling across
somewhere else, that they just can't do anything with it. And then it becomes kind of just like random about like what you can and can't steal and sell reasonably. But they will be at a much lower cost. So it's not going to be the kind of thing where like, oh, I can just like steal the boxes from somebody else's hauling contract and then I'm just rich immediately because it's just so much and I didn't have to do anything for the time. And then that would just make it to where nobody could ever deliver these things because people are just constantly like camping the routes that they would be on. Okay. So the TLDR is, we don't want to necessarily overly restrict where you can store things, but some of the I'll say like high security or high value items are going to have special casing for them.
Okay. Current storage crates are indiscernible from one another in name and appearance. Will it be possible to differentiate storage containers via changes to either the name, the label, the color, or some other means?
Great question. Another thing that we've definitely talked about and have plans for, not going to be in this release, but we definitely want players to lean into the inventory container boxes. And right now they're not differentiable. We have ideas for things like tinting and labeling and naming. I don't want to say that anything there is like totally concrete that we are going to do it exactly one particular way, but we're definitely going to do something there. We want to give players a reason to use these more, And then once you use them more, you run into the problem of how do you differentiate between them to say that like, okay, this is like my weapons container, or this is like my armor container, or this is my ship items. We want players to have some way to manage all of that to keep it in check. Like once you get a
stickers,
a few of these going,
let me put stickers on my boxes,
like a whack-a-mole about remembering which one it was and opening them and realizing it was the wrong one or calling the wrong one up from the freight elevator. And so yes, it's something that we're planning but don't have a specific solution that we've
stickers, Chad,
to yet.
Like the dentist.
Just a few more questions I think we can squeeze in here. How much total SCU can the freight elevator hold at any one time? And are all freight elevator capacities the same at all locations?
They're all different. So there's 4 different sizes. There's small, medium, large, and extra large. I don't want to speak off the top of my head to the exact volumes of those because I'll probably misremember one. But they are different. And we want to basically encourage people to upgrade. The idea is that if you have a smaller ship, you shouldn't necessarily be able to do huge hauling runs. On the flip side, we want to encourage players being able to call up ground vehicles or smaller vehicles in the freight elevators, which we have not forgotten about. I know that's something that players were looking forward to. That's still something we want to support. So that the sizes of the freight elevators are designed to hold the ships that we want players to be able to call up from. So the small ones aren't going to be like super tiny, but the larger ones are certainly going to be better for hauling like 32 SCU boxes, for example.
Okay. Let's squeeze 2 more questions. We haven't talked about the ship lift. So the lift that brings your ship up was one of the really cool reveals in the last the cargo episode 4 weeks ago. I got 2 questions about the ship lift here. One, will we be able to call up multiple vehicles simultaneously on a single vehicle lift?
Not for this release. So again, another thing that we definitely have thought about and considered. At the moment, the experience is going to be very similar to the current ASOP, which is you'll call up a ship. If there's a current ship on the landing platform, it'll lower and despawn that one, spawn the new one, then raise. So it'll just be one at a time for this release. But if you can move it off to the side, you can chain the request to get multiple like that. But what you won't be able to do is like say like, okay, I want my Cutlass and I want my Gladius and I want my Rock or something like that, and then on a big platform like 4 ships all at once.
Their Rock.
I'm sorry?
Said
no.
Nobody has ever in the world in the history of Star Citizen said I want my Rock DS.
Yeah, Rock DS is the one, Jared. That's what you're thinking.
Did you say Rock or Rock DS?
Yes, I said Rock.
Okay, no, Rock is fine. Just nobody's ever said I want my Rock DS. That's never happened.
No, I didn't say DS.
Okay, I'm sorry.
But yeah, so like there's some design considerations there as well as technical. How do they come up? How do you pick multiple at the same time? How do you say if there's 3 ships on the platform and you only want to swap one of them out? Like all of that stuff just adds like a lot of complexity to the system that we just didn't want to mess with now. We want to keep it simple and get it working. There's a lot that's already changing in the ship spawning flow right now. Adding this in the middle of all of that was just a step too far. So we are trying to keep this step an iterative step as far as making the changes to spawning via this ship platform. But we will revisit this. It is something we want again to encourage people to upgrade to the larger hangars. So we want that to not just be useful for big ships, but also multiple and also multi-crewing and all of that.
I'm sorry, chat. It's not that I don't like the Rock DS. It's that I hate it.
It's okay. It doesn't like you either.
We're allowed to like some things and not like other things. People think you just have to. I got feelings. I got opinions.
It knows what it did.
It doesn't do nothing.
Yeah.
Sorry. Is there any other location? Oh, sorry. Last ship lift question. Is there any other location besides the personal hangars where the ship lifts are being used to deliver vehicles to you?
Not at the moment. No.
Okay. I'm sure I'm going to get a message about, Jared, you can't talk about the Rock DS. We might sell 2 in the next 3 years. And you're going to...
God, Jared.
All right, last question. I was just thinking about what I said, and I am going to get that message now. I'm in trouble. Fauna. 323 has the addition of the Copian and the Merrick bird. Hypothetically, don't you dare say not in this release. Hypothetically, if I go out to the plains of Lorville or Microtech and I coerce a kind and gentle Copian onto my ship and I bring that ship back to my personal hangar, and then I coerce the kind and gentle Copian out of my ship into my personal hangar, and then I leave. Does that Copian now persist in my personal hangar for all time?
Come on, Chad.
Oh man.
Come on.
So it's going to work. The way to think about what will persist in the hangars is just to think about what will persist in the ships, because it's identical. And I think people have probably seen the video of like people spending like a month collecting NPCs in the game and their ship. So for now, for sure, if it persists in the vehicle, it's going to persist in the hangar. In this case,
Pets confirmed.
Yes, I believe that the Copion would persist. I
Pets
haven't personally tested
confirmed.
that, so, but I'm pretty sure it would persist. And in fact, we already have bugs right now about people being attacked in the station by like the Copions and stuff that are like kind of we'll say encouraged into the station by
Everything
some other
changes
players.
with pets.
So like if you're able to get one all the way into your hangar, then like okay, you're gonna get rewarded. Maybe that's your own security mechanism. We solved it.
Every time you walk into your hangar, risk of dying.
I was so excited for this, for the fauna stuff, and I see the backer. So many people are like, can we kill it? Can't we hunt and murder it? And I'm just like,
we need pets. I mean, there you go, pets. We
just want to shoot things, Jared.
Kind and gentle. Bring them home.
Not enough things to fight
let
with
them
in
sit
this
on
game.
the couch and stuff,
Except each other.
and keep them from falling. Be careful. Be sure they don't fall down the vehicle lift when the doors open and stuff. So I'm just, like I said, all right, I want to be real clear. I'm joking. I'm having fun. But he did not say that's a definite thing. That is clearly an untested situation that I presented to Chad.
We will test it
He's
soon.
speaking hypothetically based on his knowledge of how the system works right now. This is not a guarantee or an admittal that it does work. But I want all of you, every single one of you, to try it when the time comes, because I'd rather build little personal zoos than be out there murdering a bunch of virtual dog, cat things who just want to be loved. That's it. Hey, Chad, do you want to see my Cobra Hiss?
Yeah.
Show my Cobra Hiss. Look at this. Look at that. Look at my new toy.
Amazing.
Isn't it cool?
That is really cool, actually.
It's cool. It's got a Viper in driving, and it's got Cobra Commander in there. It's really cool. I like it. All right,
It's good lighting.
Everybody, that's the show. Thanks a
the
lot.
show.
Thanks for hanging out at the end of this Friday. I think we're going to do a raid for somebody. I didn't check my messages to see who, but if there's a raid, be sure you tell spread the love and support our fellow Star Citizen streamers on this fine day. If you haven't watched it, check out this week's episode of ISC. It's all about the water wizards who are doing all these big improvements to the graphics and simulation and rendering for water. Next week, come back to another episode of ISC. It's going to be on the whole host of Arena Commander updates that are coming in 323. You thought the PU just had a whole bunch of PU stuff. The 323 just had a whole bunch of PU stuff. It's even got a whole bunch of stuff in 323, including new experimental modes and new racetracks and a whole bunch of fixes and the return of something folks have been waiting for a long time that I'm not going to spoil right now because I got to make another show for next Thursday. And then we'll come right back here next Friday and we'll have all the members of the UI team, Bone, sit in the chair. And they'll answer your questions about UI stuff, star map and interior map. And
You better get more post
So,
323 stuff, because
that was Chad. Say hi, Chad.
sharing
Bye,
locations and stuff.
Hi, Chad. Goodbye, Chad.
I'm Jared. Thanks for watching. Thanks for staying with us for extra time today. We know how much this topic means to folks. Take care. And yeah, I'll see you next week, everybody. Bye.
Yeah. Just thinking of that disco bird emote with the spinning head. Yeah. Okay, sorry. That's my music, not theirs. So this was a lot of info. I actually quite enjoyed what we got to hear there. Specifically the access to inventories and other people's hangars is like a really, that's good to hear. The more I think about it, the more it's obvious that that needed to happen for the way they're changing the system. But I'm really liking the idea that for org gameplay, that is a godsend. I can't wait for that to further continue to develop. What is... Oh. Besides that, though, I think I'm going to have a lot more to say about this on Monday if we watch it again. We probably won't because we didn't do this live. But this is exciting. Yeah, I put out a video about this on my channel. I don't think anything that came out in this really invalidates that. So if you want more details on how this works, check that out. But we got a good summary right here. This was a solid look at cargo hauling. Best one we've had so far. And from what I'm hearing, they're saying good things. Song name is Oliver Michael, or artist is Oliver Michael. Song is Running in the Dark. And I'm going to pass you all on to Salty Mike for his own reaction, because I need to go and take a little break before our podcast starts. Again, if you're a subscriber, a partner, YouTube member, Ko-fi, Patreon, Twitch, whatever you are, you can come join us for the live podcast. Starting in about 45 to 50 minutes. I'll be on with Salty Mike. We'll be talking about this show, 323 and the future of Star Citizen this year. So if you're into that kind of stuff, I'll see you there. Otherwise, thank you all for being here. I'll be back with you tomorrow for more Star Citizen with the org. Actually, no, we have a podcast tomorrow on the stream about exploration. So make sure to come and check that out too. I'll be live with 4 members from the community talking about the future of that gameplay. It's a good week for news. Anyways, everybody, appreciate y'all. Hope you have a great day. Go give someone a hug, eat something yummy, have a good one, and I'll catch you later. Bye.